Welcome to GenX Adulting. And today we have Aileen Harvey from the You Keep Me Sane podcast with us. Welcome, Aileen.
Hi, guys. It's so nice to be here with you today. Thanks
We're
for
so
having me.
excited to have you here. We had your co-host, Julie, on with us a few weeks ago.
Oh, it's so nice to see her on here as well. She's one of my besties.
She's great. She's great. And we've been so excited to have this conversation with you. And our first question is always, what year were you born?
Oh, giving away my secrets. 1971.
Same as us.
Same as us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
When are your birthdays?
March.
And mine's
Okay.
August.
Yeah. What
And
about you?
I'm April 13.
Okay.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You just had a birthday. So wait, I'm a Pisces. You're not a Pisces. Are you an Aries?
I'm an Aries.
You're an Aries. Okay. Yeah. So you're just like us, right in the middle, like right hardcore Gen X. You're not near the Gen Jones, like the earlier,
Nope.
and you're not near the Zennials later in the Gen X generation. We're in the heart of it where we truly, I think the 71, 72, 73, 74 babies really experience like all the stuff that they talk about. Like we were really in the heart of all that.
Oh gosh, definitely. I can remember it as well. Quite, I can remember running around the streets like yesterday at like 7 years old.
Oh yeah.
And here we are in our 50s. How did that happen?
I know. And I always say, like, no matter how old Gen X gets, I think we're perpetually 30.
Yeah, I don't feel old.
No, I don't know. Some days I definitely don't feel like that. My bones hurt. I'm in perimenopause at this age and I can't believe it.
Yeah.
How can it be this late?
I know. No. And I'm really looking forward to talking about that with you because I think anytime we have a Gen X woman on, I do a whole thing about, let's talk about the perimenopause and menopause. So for our listeners, we are going to cover that. But our next question is always, where were you born?
I was born in Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay.
Wow.
So for someone like me, who's fairly ignorant to Scotland, like anything about Scotland, and for our listeners who may not know anything about Scotland, how big is Glasgow? How would you compare it to other cities?
So the capital of Scotland is Edinburgh, and there's probably about 500 to 700,000 people, and Glasgow has, last time I checked, probably about 1 million people.
Wow. So Glasgow's
it's bigger.
It
was
urban.
So you've got the city centre, and I mean, it used to be big shipbuilding back in the 70s, but now it's much more cool and trendy than it used to be when I was young, or we were young. But I've not been for a while, but there is a really cool city centre. And then there are lots. I lived in a suburb, which was about 4 miles outside of Glasgow. In fact, I used to walk. My uni was in the centre, and I used to walk to uni.
Okay, so that's so interesting. You call the suburb, it's a suburb, but it's only 4 miles away. Because like in America, a suburb would be like
40.
Yeah, I know, but look, you got to look at the size of Scotland.
Yeah.
We should get our maps out.
That makes sense. So was there a big difference in 4 miles between the city center and the suburb vibe? Was there that much of a difference?
Oh, completely different. It's because it's all tenement buildings in the centre, flats, but we lived in a nice part of Glasgow, the south side, where they had houses, red sandstone houses, really nice. And then if you went another couple of miles out, it was even bigger houses, detached houses. So it's a real mix, Glasgow, but people just always remember Glasgow as this kind of, it's a bit rough, I think, but it's beautiful around the surrounding area. And some of the centre now as well.
Now, is the city centre, like you're saying, is it kind of yuppified, like very trendy, young people living there? Is that kind of what's happened?
Some of it is, yeah. It's definitely changed from when I was young. It was, it wasn't the prettiest. But if you go in, there is a beautiful park called Princess Square, and it had all these beautiful shops. There's some really cool shops, expensive shops, but then you still have the down to earth shops that you would get in Oxford Street in London. I don't know if you know London. It's compatible with that.
Okay. Okay. So in Scotland, so how long would it take you to get, let's say, from Glasgow to Edinburgh?
So to drive would be about an hour.
Okay.
So
Wow.
not far. I mean, it's not like the States. I've
Yeah.
spent 4 months in the States, and I remember you had to travel.
Oh yeah. So where
a
have
lot.
you gone here in the States?
So when I was 21, I worked in Virginia Beach, and I had
Okay.
2 jobs, and I was working so that I could make money to travel. And then I've been to San Francisco, New Orleans, Texas, Florida, Miami, New Jersey, New York.
Okay.
I've done quite a lot of the States. I
You
love it.
have. You have. You have. Okay, so as far as Glasgow, how did your family how many generations back does your family go there? Like how did your
Oh,
family end
wow.
up there?
Right. So my dad was Scottish, but my
Okay.
mum was Irish. And my
Okay.
mum moved to Scotland when she was 19. And she had actually grown up with nuns, and they had shipped her to Scotland at that age. And she met my dad. And so we're not a big family. My dad had a sister who died when she was 9 and he was 11.
Mm.
And his dad died as an alcoholic, and he was left with his mum. And we never knew our grandparents. And
Okay.
so it hasn't
So
been, it's not a lot of generations behind
okay,
us.
so your mom grew up with nuns and she's from Ireland.
Mhm.
What's the story there with your mom?
So my mum was born in Dublin, and
Mhm.
she was born, her mum, we call it, she was born out with wedlock. So her mum wasn't married. As an Irish Catholic, that's a no.
Yep.
So she was
Not
kicked
okay.
out. Not okay. And her dad was from Lithuania.
Okay.
And yeah, so she then she was told, she went to foster care, in and out of foster care, but her mum, there were other siblings. So she was allowed to spend time with her mum, but not call her mum. And she grew up like this.
Okay, so let's dissect this. Okay,
Okay.
so how old was your mom when she got pregnant?
Not my mum, her
Oh
mum.
no. Oh
So my
wait.
mum's mum,
Okay, so your
grandmother.
grandmother
The grandmother.
had your mom
Yeah.
out of wedlock
Yeah.
before she got married and had other children?
Yeah, but she married a different man.
Right.
So
Did you say a Slovenian man?
No, Lithuanian.
Lithuanian. Oh, well remembered. Lithuanian. Yeah.
Lithuanian. Okay.
So
Yeah.
your
And he wasn't Catholic.
okay, so your grandmother uh had your mom out of wedlock with a man who was a Lithuanian.
Yes. And
Let's
so
pause there for a second.
Yeah.
In Ireland, do they discriminate against Lithuanians? Is that a
no, it was
problem, or
just,
is it okay?
it's more about the Catholic thing.
Okay,
And
so
he
the
was
religion.
actually a Jewish man from Lithuania. And
Okay.
so it's the Catholic thing more
Yeah.
than
Got
anything.
it.
So
Got it.
how old was your grandmother when she got pregnant with your mom?
Well, so it was said that she was 18, but we did all the research and it turned out, I think she was about 26. So it was quite late.
So your grandmother was 26, hadn't
Yeah.
been married yet or had any other kids.
No, well, that's another
Okay, wait.
story.
So had your grandmother been married before or had other children before your mom?
Well, we didn't know about this, but at my mum's funeral about 9 years ago, we discovered she had another brother who was older. So I think there were 7 or 8 siblings in total.
So your grandmother had a son
She had a
before
few sons, but there was someone who was older than my mum, who
before
we
your mom.
didn't know about.
Oh, you thought your mom was
So,
the oldest.
right. Okay.
She was we thought she was the oldest, yeah.
Yeah, got
So
it.
before she had your mom, she had a son,
She did.
but you don't know who that father was.
We don't know
or
anything about him.
and
We
you don't know
only heard.
how old she was when she had him. Do you know that?
I don't know because it's a lot of history. I don't know how much you want me to go into.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's up to
interesting.
you.
So
Yeah.
my mum then had a brother who was also part of the Lithuania man. So there was 2 years between them, but they were separated.
Okay. Wait. Repeat that again. Say
So
that
I
Okay.
know. The perimenopause for me is terrible.
No,
Anyway,
no. Listen, if
right.
you
It's
ask
a
me,
big story.
listen, I could tell you my dad, I have siblings from all over, and one of them
Oh,
I
do
didn't
you?
find out about until I was 23. So
Yeah.
there's
I
nothing
want to
you can
hear.
say. Yeah,
Or is it
I'll share that. But
another
okay,
time? Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm connecting the dots.
Okay.
Okay, so say that part again.
Thanks for asking this. I don't get asked these things. So my mum was born, and then there was a brother 2 years after her,
Okay.
but they were separated. And then my grandmother then married a man who I'm guessing he's Catholic. I don't know, but he was Irish, and then went on to have 4 children with him, although they're not sure whether it was with him or still the Lithuanian man. Because when you look at some of them, it's
Okay.
not it's
Awesome.
not clear.
I
Okay.
love it. That's
So
amazing.
so the oldest brother before your mom,
Mhm.
we don't know anything about him, like his dad
No,
or
we don't
even
know. I
or even
think
the
it must have been. I think it's a Lithuanian man. I think it
And they
must
only
be
found out about him at her mother's
mum's
funeral 1
funeral.
year.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe with the Lithuanian. Now, do you know, but you don't know the older brother and your mom, how many years between them? How much older he
No,
is?
because I think at the funeral, so the 4 siblings with the husband,
Yes.
they only found out near the funeral time that they were real half siblings of my mum, or maybe full siblings. So they were devastated, but they knew about this other brother somehow, somewhere. They found
Okay.
out.
So just so I have it right, there's the older brother and then your mom, maybe both from the Lithuanian guy. Then
And then another
another
brother,
brother that was
Lithuania guy.
probably Lithuanian guy, but separated, right? You said that one was separated, that next
Well, they
brother?
got separated when my grandmother gave them up, both of them, but they were together at the time, but then separated. Then she went on to marry and had 4 children.
So the older brother and your mom were together for a little while, but
No,
got never
not
together.
the oldest one. There was an oldest one, don't know where
Yes.
he is, then my mum, and then another one.
And then
They
4
were
more.
together, and then
Yeah.
4. And then I don't
So
know if there's any more
so 7 total.
that
And
we know about.
so you think your mom and then her first youngest brother were probably also the Lithuanian guy?
Yeah.
But they were separated.
Yeah.
The mom and do you know where he went?
Well, then my brother, one of my siblings, he found him and got in
Okay.
touch with him. And he actually ended up going to Australia and cycling because he got put with priests at some point, and then my mum was put with nuns after they had been in and out of foster care. I don't know how they ended up from foster care in the convent and in the priesthood, but I
So
think it was quite damaging for him.
I'm sure. Were they given up as babies? Your mom and her
I
younger brother?
I don't think they were given up as babies. Not that I know of, but they could have been, but I don't know at which point. I don't know if my mum knows that, but I just know she was allowed to see her mum from a very young age with the other siblings, but not call her mum.
Interesting.
So what a trip. So your mom and her younger brother might have actually been brought home with your mom
Maybe,
when they were babies, and she maybe raised them a little bit, but
maybe
then they were put into foster care, but not together, to
not
separated.
together, separated. Yeah,
And then your mom remarries, has more kids, and I mean your grandmother, and then your mom has memories of going to her mom's place and being around these other siblings, but
yeah.
not being able to call her mom.
No,
So I wonder how she was explained to
I
them.
don't know because my oldest sibling and his wife were going to Ireland regularly over the last 20 years. And they kept saying, what is the relationship with your mum and us? And then they kept giving them alcohol so that and eventually they talked, but it took a long time. They felt it, but it was never said.
So they know, those 4 siblings
They
from
now know.
they know that there were 3 other siblings that could be their half siblings. Your mom, her younger
Yeah,
brother, and that very
yeah,
oldest person
yeah.
could possibly, but
Or
you don't
maybe,
know when they found out about your mom
oh,
and her.
oh yeah. Well, they found out not long before my mum's funeral because my brother had gone over. They had plied them with alcohol, said, "Who's your mum?" And so they were devastated because they had, spent time with my mom and my brother and everything. So they were really, the youngest took it the worst, and he was a male, and it pushed them away. But they wanted to know, but they couldn't. It was a lot.
So they remembered your mom?
They did. Yeah, they did.
And that is crazy. I mean, it's just like there's so much trauma on every end, right? Like especially your mom,
Oh my
and
gosh.
then the two brothers. But then these four siblings who are being raised in this quote unquote conventional family lifestyle, and maybe these other kids are coming over and being told they're cousins or something, like they're not being acknowledged.
Cousins.
And they're finding out those were my siblings.
Terrible. But
wow.
I think it was common back in these days in Ireland. It was a very common thing, but awful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you don't know what made them send her to live in a convent. Was it maybe just she had an age? You just don't, you don't know.
I don't know. She didn't explain that, but I know it affected her, obviously.
Because I think the church stepped in often, right? If it got, I don't know what the threshold was, but somehow the church would get involved and raise kids or care for people. It's very common, I think, in Ireland.
It was back in the day for sure.
Yeah. And back then with the Catholic Church, that's when everything was very strict. Like nuns could hit, and it was like all the old fashioned, very powerful.
Yeah, they were.
And I'm saying this, I'm Catholic, so I'm saying this as a Catholic. There's a lot of bad history there of the way children were treated and all that. I mean, even you, when you would go to CCD as a kid, I think
the nun was probably 4'9", but we were all scared scared of it.
They were scary. We had them at my school as well.
I don't think by then she wasn't allowed to hit us.
Right.
There was rumors, and she carried like a little stick, like a little prodding, like a pointer.
And
terrifying.
Our kids went to Catholic school, and there was none. And the Catholic Church has gone through a whole change because they were losing people. And so they have had to grow with the times. And obviously all the pedophilia crap that came out from priests and stuff. So they've had to adjust. But back then, when your mom and her brother were sent away to priests and nuns, that was in the nightmare time.
I couldn't imagine it. I don't even want to imagine.
Yeah. How long was she with nuns? Do you know how long she lived there?
I don't know. I just know things like she didn't have her period till she was 16. And I think she was made to feel guilty when she had hers. And so there was a lot of guilt from anything. And so there was no self-worth. And they were abandoned. But I don't know the age of everything, but I just know period was there and that she got shipped to Scotland at 19.
Was she made to feel guilty because she got it so late or because she got it?
I think getting it, but she never told me everything. It would have been the control. I mean, we all got it. All women get it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because the way she was with me when I got mine and I was very early, it was awful. She made me think, I thought I was dying.
Then it was all about control. It was an authoritarian regime that was all about control. They scared the shit out of you. They put fear and uncertainty and doubt, and that's their way of
shame.
Of keeping shame.
Shame, the guilt.
Shaming women especially, I think, was up there for sure. I mean, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you know why she was sent to Scotland? Like what triggered that?
I think maybe for work. I think it was just to come and get her job, sort her life here. And so she came over and she started as a secretary. She was actually quite bright, my mum. She was funny, cheeky. And I think just back in those days, you didn't get much of a choice if you didn't have the education. And she was stifled, and then you meet your partner young and they meet at a dance. Like you guys were young when you obviously when you got together.
Yeah. But we met at college. We were friends for like 3 years, but
that's nice.
It wasn't out of desperate, like for your mom, it's like desperation. Right? It's a desperate
or liberation. You know,
depending. I mean, so when she met your father, how did they meet?
At a dance hall, and he had actually been engaged before, my dad, but
Okay.
he'd been away at the Merchant Navy from the age of 19. And I don't know, he must have been engaged really young. He always said I was like this woman. But she ditched him. She wrote him a letter when he was at sea saying, "This is off."
Oh.
And then I think he liked my mum because she was so sweet and innocent and all of those things. And she was probably 21, and he would have been about 24, 25.
Okay.
And they got married probably at 22 and then had a child.
Okay. So
22, 23, then had my oldest when she was 24.
Your older sister?
Oldest brother.
So how many are there? How many
3
siblings?
of us, two brothers, and then me. I'm the youngest. It's
You're
so
the
funny.
baby.
You're the youngest at 50.
Yeah, I know,
I'm the
right?
same.
You're the baby.
You're the same.
Yeah. No, that's so
That's
funny.
so funny.
Okay, so how far apart are you and your brothers?
The one in Asia, he is 4.5 years older than me, and then between those two, there's another 3.5. So there's 8 between me and the oldest.
Okay.
Same for you?
Were your mom a stay-at-home mom?
She was, but then she went back to work. So then I became a latchkey kid.
How old? Well, what did your dad do?
My dad worked in an engineering company that was about 20-minute walk from where we lived, and he put out tenders for desalination products in the Middle East.
What is that?
Desalination.
So so taking the salt
water so they can drink it and farm with it.
Oh, that's so cool.
I know, it sounds cool.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. Okay, so how old were you when your mom went back to work?
So I've been thinking about this a lot. It's so hard to remember ages, but probably I would have been maybe 7, 8, I think.
Okay. So that's like what, third grade, something like second, third grade. So is that when
I don't know. I'm primary 7.
No, it's hard to think.
No,
back.
primary
Around
4.
7, 8 is when you became a latchkey kid.
A latchkey kid.
So
I think so. Could have been 10. It's so hard to remember.
Okay, so between the ages of like 7 to 10, somewhere.
My mom, I became more a latchkey kid in 7th grade.
7th
So I don't know how old I was.
Yeah.
But 7th grade.
But for you,
I go by age. I was definitely in primary school. We call primary. Okay. So I wasn't at secondary for sure. So
okay, so being a latchkey kid in Scotland, I'm wondering, is it around the same as how it was for American latchkey kids? Like, did you guys, were you feral on the streets? Were you just gone and no one knew where you were? And
of course,
after school, you just let yourself in and took care of everything? Like, how was that experience in Scotland?
Yeah, I mean, well, you had your key, if you remembered it. But we were just sent out until the street lights came on in Scotland. And no one knew where you were. I mean, we're the last generation of this. Yes. And so because I could look quite innocent, I would say, I'm just going to here. But I would be walking over the railway tracks and also, I mean, I think if our children did what we did.
Oh, no. Yeah. Never. And then when you would come home from school, would you let yourself in and have
I let myself in.
Did you have to do chores or anything around the house? Not
much, not at that age, actually. I didn't get pushed. And I look back and I think that's a shame. And I'm probably not very good at giving chores either.
Yeah. I don't think we are.
I know it's really bad. But I certainly don't want to pay for it. I see people paying their children to do chores. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
But I don't know why we weren't pushed to do more. It was only later my mum got fed up. But I can remember her ironing 20 shirts on a Friday or a Sunday while we all just watched TV. And you thought that was the norm, but I don't even iron.
Oh, no, I don't think any of us really iron. I mean, speaking of, my mom irons everything. I never have an ironing board out. Like, I think as a generation, maybe in general, we were like, no, we're not ironing. It's like,
that's what the dryer's for.
My mom told me that my grandmother would iron my grandfather's underwear. Seriously, she would iron his underwear.
I know they did.
I don't think I mean, I know there's people that probably still iron. I'm not saying everyone, But in general, I don't think we're ironing as a
No,
generation.
I
Do you
can't
know
stand
anyone
it.
that irons?
No. I remember when I got married and I tried to iron a shirt and his mom was like, why don't I just take over? It's like, thank you.
Yeah. I don't think it's a thing.
If we're gonna have something ironed here, it gets dry cleaned, and then it shows up
Yeah.
on a hanger. And
Yeah, that's great. I know.
It's true. Although my mom lives with us, so sometimes I'm like, have Grammy D iron it because she does.
She owns an ironing board, I think.
An ironing board.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so funny, but I don't think there's ironers. Okay, but
I'm glad to hear that.
You guys were still in Scotland. You were doing the same thing. We were.
Oh, same thing. Just, going in, eating. I mean, we didn't have a lot of cakes and sweets in the house or anything. We didn't have a lot of fruit and veg either because it was really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't eat very well either. It was like white bread and spreading cheese or that Kraft cheese that you open.
Yes.
It's cellophane, put it in a sandwich. I mean, it was disgusting.
So we call that American cheese.
American cheese, probably.
Oh, the slices, you mean?
The wee slices, you still like them?
Yeah,
we grew up with all that.
We call that it's processed. We know
it's
that.
Processed. Oh yeah.
But that's over
Yellow
here. That's
cheese.
called the Kraft slice. They come in individual.
The Kraft, yeah.
We call that American cheese.
Cheese.
Yeah, isn't that funny? And over here you can get it orange or white. So it's fancy.
It tastes good. It's not.
Which one's healthier?
Real. Neither, no.
Neither one. Okay, so when you were in elementary school, like, did you do any clubs or sports what were you into?
Oh, I was like captain of the badminton team. I was really good at all the running. What else did we do in primary school? I'm trying to think. Primary, lots of PE, rubbish at the high jump, good at the long jump. Because at that bar for me, the high jump, I had this thing. Did you do that? Where you just put your legs over in scissors?
Yeah.
I just couldn't get my head around that. And I was scared of that bar. I was so bad.
You guys had, because we call that track and field. You guys had track and field in, you call it primary school. We call it elementary. You had it at that young of an age?
Well, we had the bar. We had the high jump. Yeah. But not the high jump you seen.
Like, it wasn't a thing. You had to sign up for it over here.
You?
Yeah, it wasn't like we had like recess and PE where we played dodgeball or things like that, but there was no high jump.
There was like in junior high and in high school.
But it was an elective activity.
It was
we were forced.
Sport you did.
It sounds like you're saying it
track
was
and field.
Part of it.
That was part of it, but it wasn't the high jump where you see in the Olympics and you get your body over. It was just your legs, scissor legs. It was horrible. I hated it.
I can't even picture that.
I'll need to look it up. What? A pole? No.
There's a rope hanging from the ceiling that you climb up.
Did you guys have to do that?
No, we didn't have to do that. We did netball.
We had to do that, and the mat was like half an inch thick.
Oh no.
Liability.
Did you?
Way to the ceiling, and if you fell, you landed on a mat that was like
what?
Yeah, it was dangerous.
What age were you?
Elementary school, primary, like young.
Oh wow.
That was junior high for us.
We had that in elementary. Did you guys have dodgeball?
Didn't have dodgeball. Is it like netball or basketball?
No, dodgeball.
We learned about netball from Julie. We never heard of netball.
Yeah.
She described
That's so funny. I've heard of dodgeball, but I don't know how you play it.
Okay, so dodgeball. Okay, so maybe it's totally American, but you have teams and you have a ball, and you try to hit the kids on the other team as hard as possible to knock them. Once they get hit, they're out. And you can, and with us,
kind of a last man standing.
With us, here's the thing: with GenX,
people,
we had a red rubber plastic ball. So when that thing hit you, like in the face or anything, it hurt. Now kids have a Nerf ball, so it's different. It doesn't hurt like it did for GenX, but we would get smacked like right in the face with a red rubber ball. And it would hurt so bad, and it was brutal. And so it was just like King of the Hill stuff. Like you just every man for himself until there's two people standing, and then whoever got the other out, that's how you won.
Were you guys good at that?
No, I was horrible.
I was pretty good.
That sounds painful. I mean, it sounds a bit like paintballing, but not. But it sounds painful. I wouldn't like
if
that.
someone threw it at you and you caught it, they would have to go out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you just have to get hit.
You do things like you throw a ball up, and when someone's trying to catch it, someone else will smack them in the face.
Yeah, because there's more than one ball. So
Yeah.
you can,
Oh, right. Okay.
you had
No,
nothing like
didn't have that. No. Majorettes and tennis and that kind of thing. Loads of sports. Loads.
What's majorettes?
You know, with the baton.
Oh, okay,
Like
yeah,
marching?
baton, yeah, okay, we have baton. But that one again was that was like an optional thing. That wasn't something that you just did. And and you said badminton, right? Is that now,
Badminton?
badminton?
It is the same.
It's the little thing, and you hit it.
Shuttlecock. A little shuttlecock,
What's it
we
called?
call it. They call it a shuttlecock.
A shuttlecock?
I think we call it a birdie here.
We call it a birdie.
A birdie. I love it.
It's got like a little rubber nose and a plastic
Yes.
thing.
It's so funny that I love all the different names.
Yeah, but the thing about badminton here is that's just something you do like at a picnic or a barbecue. It was never in school.
Oh, we did it in school.
So you guys had teams?
We played against different schools. We definitely,
Two, right? One-on-one.
Sometimes two, sometimes two, then sometimes one. Yeah. My school was really sporty.
Like tennis. Okay, so but you would have badminton. Like
but so I did.
You represent your school.
Yeah.
What a trip. What
a young.
Did you guys have baseball?
No, we didn't have baseball. You guys have no. Soccer for the boys, not for the girls. But now they have soccer for the girls. It's massive now, soccer here.
I'm sure.
Oh, cool.
For the girls. Yeah, the girls are really going for it now. It's changed.
That's awesome. Do you guys call it soccer or football?
Football.
Okay. And then you don't have football like we have football, right? Like our football.
We don't have that.
No. You have rugby.
Rugby. Yeah.
Okay.
Hockey.
Yeah,
I didn't play hockey.
Cricket
they play in some schools. Cricket they would play, but some not. We did more rounders, they called it, where you hit a ball and then you had to run to each pitch point and try and outsmart the.
Like baseball, kind of?
A bit like that. It was a bit like that. We did rounders, but I know a lot of people that do cricket as well. Depends on the school.
Okay. So it sounds like you were athletic.
I was. I loved my sport. I was, I loved singing, dancing, everything.
Okay, so that's also artistic. So you kind of did athletics, and did you participate like in school theater?
So, I mean, I used to sing for school in secondary school.
Would that be like high school for us?
High school, yeah. High school.
Okay.
But I had so much fear and I never thought I was good enough because my voice was very straight, whereas this other girl could sing with this warble. And for me, like Mariah Carey. And I was just like, I want to be like that. And my singing teacher would be, Aileen, your voice is great. But one day I just couldn't take it. I just collapsed with fear and I had to duck. I ducked.
Well, so when did you...
It is a lot.
It is a lot of pressure. I know, but I loved it.
When did you discover you could sing?
I loved singing from a young age. Singing, dancing. I was such a wee show-off from a very young age.
So you love to perform?
I did. But then it kind of gets kicked out of you a wee bit and you're sent down the academic route more.
So when would you say, do you guys have middle school or junior high, or do you go right from primary to secondary? Or do you have
primary to secondary? So from age 12, you move to secondary, 12, 13.
Okay.
Up until...
so you guys kind of do like 8th grade to 12th grade. Like we have a middle school that's like 6 to 8. So like 11 to 13, we have a break there of a separate school.
That's so interesting.
We go into high school 14. And that starts like our 9th grade. So you guys went primary up to like 7th grade age and then went into secondary. So during your primary, was that when you were singing and dancing? And you were kind of uninhibited about it, not so self-conscious? And then was it when you hit secondary
13,
school?
it's when you hit 13.
Yeah.
I've seen it with my daughter as well. We all become more conscious.
Yeah.
And
is it the pressure from the older kids? Part of it?
No, it wasn't actually. I think, to be honest, my mum and dad, my mum would have encouraged actually, but my dad, I found out when he died that he had been offered to be an opera singer at the age of 19. He was an amazing
Wow.
singer, but he was very shy. But after a few whiskies, he got into his opera. And he actually, I mean, it was unbelievable. He got me into opera, which is really unusual for a man of this era.
Yeah.
But he always said it never happens for people like us, Aileen. And he wasn't being nasty. He didn't believe that that could happen. So he never wanted to push me, or I played the piano. He would sing with me, all of these things. But it
So
just,
you had this beautiful relationship, this bond with your
oh,
dad
my
of
dad.
music, where you were guys were bonded with your musical interests and your shared talent, it sounds like. But it sounds like he was probably scared of you going for this and being crushed, so he just stopped it before you even started. Is that accurate?
That's a really good way to put it, actually. Yeah, he did. He did.
And I think that's normal for that generation, right?
Yeah.
Like our generation would be like, go for it.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
do it. Who
Yeah.
cares? You know, who cares what
Yeah.
anyone says? But their generation would be like, no, no, no. I need to give you as much reality as possible,
Yeah.
as young as possible.
I know. So kicks out
You
your
know. Yeah, but not
confidence.
meaning to crush your
No, not
dreams.
nasty. Nothing
Almost trying
like
to
that.
protect you. Almost trying
Yeah.
to protect you.
Yeah.
So so would you say the influence once you hit that age was more your dad kind of being like, okay, let's bring some reality into the situation, and kind of changed how you approach singing after that?
That would be part of it. And also just my lack of self-worth as well. You know, I really didn't think I was good enough. And that's been the theme throughout. I just didn't think I had it. But I don't know if that's come from him. But also, you've got siblings saying, why are you singing with an American accent? Why are you doing like that? You're rubbish? Or, you know,
Well,
where there was
And you were
nothing
the
to
youngest,
encourage.
and
right?
brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, brothers. So, when do you remember your earliest memory of not feeling good enough, or your self-worth wasn't where it should be?
I think probably that time when I ducked, when I had to sing that solo on the balcony, about to try and sing it. I just knew I wasn't going to get the note. And that was one of them. And then when I was elected as head girl at 16, I went to the headmaster's office and said, I don't deserve this. And he went, shut up, Aileen. Off you go.
So, okay, what is that? What is head girl?
So you represent the school, you're seen
Like
as
president?
good at everything. You're a good all-rounder, good at, I mean, I was top at school, then all the dance, all the things that I did, the sports, the dance, I was a goody two-shoes, really.
Okay, so to me that sounds like we have a thing at where it's like Miss, it's the high school, like Miss, Boca, or Miss, like it, like where
Yeah.
you're just good at, like you're saying, kind of everything. And
Yeah.
you were elected. Were you elected by your peers or by teachers?
Was a girl that elected me, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know she noticed me. She said Aileen should be I remember. And then they had to all elect, and then the
So
teachers
okay,
had to say,
you excelled at academics, you
I
excelled
did.
at singing, you excelled at athletics, I'm assuming, you
Yeah.
excelled at dancing. I know dancing's athletics, but I still separate them because I feel like one's art, more artistic. But and then your peers obviously supported you because they elected you.
I
So you have
know.
all the reasons. And I think this is such a great example. I think this happens to kids that are overachievers. Is from the outside looking in, it looks like you have every reason to you have everything to the outsider, right? You're good
Yeah.
at everything, and
Yeah.
your peers support you, and the teachers support you, the adults around you support you. But inside, you're crumbling. Have imposter syndrome, probably, I
Yeah.
assume, and feel like you don't have a strong foundation or that you deserve it.
Yeah. You just felt like that. And also, I think the relationship with my mum, it was really difficult because of what happened to her life and her abandonment issues. And she was so harsh with us. And I
Okay.
ended up being the mediator at times from the age of 7, actually. I just didn't agree with what she was saying. And I would find myself sticking up for my dad and my siblings, talking up to her, telling her, no, no, no. And we had a very tumultuous relationship, which was very detrimental to me because she wouldn't listen to me. I couldn't be heard. So I was frustrated.
So would you say that feeling of a lack of self-worth might be rooted in not being accepted and enveloped with that love from your mother?
Yeah, I didn't feel love. I'm sure she loved me. She did everything that mums do. They do all the practical things, but probably you guys might be the same where we didn't get cuddles. You didn't get told you were loved. You were seen and not heard. You didn't have a voice. And so I was very emotional. At age 12, we were going through so much.
Yes.
And actually my mum at age 10 telling me that I couldn't be having my period, and then me say, well, I must be dying because it must be coming from my bottom, and going through that actually wasn't the best.
So you got your period early. I did too. So you got your period early and she literally told you that's not what it is?
She just said it can't be. And I said, well, I must be dying because there's blood and maybe it's from my bottom. That's what I thought. So she said, let me see. I showed her and she said, I think it is your period. And then she tried to teach me how to put a tampon in. Sorry, this is so much detail.
No. This is and what's interesting is that for so many of us, first of all, no one showed us how to put a tampon. I don't know anyone. So the fact that she even tried to show, like,
she didn't show, she did it from outside the bathroom door and explained what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, which part am I putting this in? And it ended up in my bottom.
See? Yeah. No, but I'm telling you, okay, so I'm going to share this. So when I got my period and the first time I used a tampon, my parents were divorced and I grew up in Oregon. My dad lived in Michigan and I was with him for like 6 weeks in the summer. And he lived on a lake. So I was like, I have to use a tampon. I can't keep using pads. So I got a tampon. And I remember when I used it, I threw up afterwards because it was so traumatic. I was shaking. I was in a cold sweat and it's painful.
Yes,
It's
it
a
is.
painful experience.
It is.
And I know that like men think it's like you're having sex for the first time. It's not like that.
No.
But it's still very painful.
I'm blown away.
Yeah, it's still very painful. And afterwards I literally turned around and puked because it's the first time you've ever put something inside of your body, which is traumatic.
I'm sorry you went through that as well. Were you 10 as well?
I think I was 11.
So young, isn't it?
So young, and no one talked to us about even.
Why though? That's what I'm blown away with. Like, why would your mom? Maybe didn't you have an older sister?
No sisters.
The older brother. Okay.
Two brothers, two older brothers.
Why? I don't understand why moms back then wouldn't.
I mean,
they didn't.
That's wild.
I think it's the Catholic thing, isn't it?
I don't know. No, because my mom wasn't Catholic, and it wasn't that my mom didn't.
You just weren't with your mom, but would she have helped you?
I don't know.
Would she have been like, Nicole?
No,
this
I don't
is
know
how
if
you
I
do
would
it.
have
This is.
asked. I don't know if I would have asked. Like it wasn't open like that. Like when I had my daughter, as soon as she was old enough, there was like an American Girl book. I don't know if you guys have it over there. You know American Girl dolls? You guys, have you ever heard of that? So there's a book that company wrote about. It's called The Care and Keeping of You. I highly recommend any moms of preteens get it. But they have a whole chapter about getting your period. And I remember I got that book when she was like 8. And around 9, I read it to her. And then we talked about it because I was like, I'm not having her go through going into this blindly because it's traumatic.
I can't believe that.
And like for you thought your mom actually denied at first what was happening. So you went through that fear of I'm dying.
That thinking you're dying. I mean, how do you think? I don't.
That's what I was curious of. At first I thought you had an older sister, so I was like, why would your mom? She almost couldn't handle it. It sounds like when you said I have my period, she's like, I can't handle this.
Well,
no, I guess no one taught her.
Shame, right?
Yes, exactly.
So
your mom didn't have that, but then
but it just wasn't part of the generation to like go.
Yes, the generation they didn't talk, did they? About
not to that degree. No. And I don't think people understand if a young girl if no one talks to her about what it's like to put a tampon in for the first time, how truly traumatic that can be.
Awful.
It's horrible. Yeah. And for you,
putting it in my bum, I mean,
you went right for the tampon.
I guess because she didn't have pads in the house, it was straight. Yeah.
And then
she thought she had a couple of years,
yeah,
probably.
yeah, maybe,
probably, which is
Yeah.
the norm. I think the norm is 12,
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
But I'm like you with my daughter. From the very young age, she saw me in the toilet and she would ask me, and I would just say, "This is what this is." She would just be like, "Okay, no idea what she's talking about." But I didn't, same as you don't want to make it taboo.
You make it natural. And even with my sons, especially my younger son, I'm better with this. He's 16. But I'll say if there's a girl that's like she's leaked through her pants, or if she needs help, like you help her, you don't make fun of her, you don't laugh. You give her your sweatshirt to cover her pants till she gets to the nurse. The young men need to be educated too, that this is like nothing to be made fun of. And I think that's changing. I think
It's definitely changing. I love
It's
that
changing.
advice. And I've heard other people talk like that about their sons as well. I think that's brilliant. Different generation.
It's beautiful. It really is. Like and I think the more we all talk about this, the more change, you know.
Well, thank
So
God for the internet too, right? For single dads who have to deal with this, at least.
100%.
I would want
For
to be
single
supportive.
Yeah. I can't believe you didn't know that story. Did you not know that story about? Oh, wow. I love that this is something new. I love when that happens with it.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And we've been together almost 33 years.
I'm just still blown away that your moms were so standoffish.
It's just
different
generationally.
Just stoic, weren't they? It was
very
they didn't know
how,
they weren't
your
taught.
just don't talk.
Your mom was probably the same with your sister. It was probably more just you don't know.
Yeah, no
because
clue.
your mom didn't talk about periods around you, right? You didn't grow up where people talked about periods like normal. It was probably more secretive or like she has her period, but there was no discussion about it or
I have no memory of that being a thing. I know at some point it became a thing, but not how you do this type of thing.
I would guess if I were to guess for Gen X men, I'm just going to speak Gen X men. Their first exposure to women's periods was when they got a girlfriend that they were having sex with. And the reason I say that is because they would learn we're not having sex right now because she's on her period.
Oh yeah.
And I would guess that's the most applicable time Gen X boys were exposed to women's periods and that's when it affected.
We were far more sensitive than that.
No.
Were you? Tell us. Come on, teach us. Come on. I want to hear.
I would think it was from some Hollywood movie like something. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I'm trying to think of a Hollywood movie back then that would have.
There's no way. No, Hollywood
Ships,
movies.
maybe, or Laverne and Shirley.
Hollywood movies back in our time were showing women's boobs and nudity for men. Like, I'm sorry, Hollywood was catering to men too, and they certainly were talking about women's periods.
They were,
It was the first time that they really thought about it.
I had
because
a sister, so there was activities, right? Things, but you're probably not totally wrong. If you grew up with two brothers, and that's probably
it wasn't talked. That's true.
That was when it affected them is when they first really thought about it. I know I'm right.
I think you're right, but we need to do some research on this.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I'm gonna maybe put this clip out, and we'll see what we get back. But I think that that's just what makes sense because if nobody was talking about it in the home, they would have no reason to really give it much thought, right? And so it's not even their fault.
No, it's not. But we know better now.
Now we know better. Okay, so that makes sense though. With kind of, I mean, it almost sounds like you kind of have a mother wound a little bit, right?
I don't actually now. I did for a long time, but I made peace with it. In fact, when my dad died, she apologized to me for all the behaviors. And she was 63 at that point. And I remember people saying to me, "Oh, it's terrible. It took your dad dying for your mum to say sorry." And I said, I think it's utterly amazing that at 63, after everything she's been through, she was able to say, "I'm sorry." And as soon as she said sorry, I said, "That's it. We don't need to talk about this again." And that was it. We had closure.
That's cool.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
You got what so many I was like Gen X, but so many adult kids have wanted from their parents for so long and never get.
I know.
The fact that she was able to apologize to you.
I know. And then she had a stroke a couple of years later and was paralyzed halfway, almost locked in syndrome for 12 years. So it was a lot.
Did that lift like a veil? for you? Like, where
It
was there
did.
clarity or a weight off your?
Yeah, it did, because, she didn't speak to me on my wedding. She didn't speak to my brother on his wedding. She didn't speak to me for a year, even though I got engaged to the guy that she thought was the best. There's lots of silent treatment, all quite narcissistic traits. And so I really struggled. But even though I went through all that, in my 20s, when I started earning money, I used to love still taking her away to nice hotels, doing these things for her. When my dad died, I took her, got her a car. I did all these, I wanted to do things because I knew how difficult her life was. But it lifted that wound of how nasty it had been and how awful it had been for all of us, and the arguing in the house. And yeah, it made closure for me.
What do you think?
That's amazing.
What do you think clicked for her to be able to do that?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I just remember we were sitting one day and maybe we had become more open with one another. I guess seeing my dad die, really was a shock to her. And that kind of loss where you have someone, even though you argue all the time, but to lose them, you then realize, actually, I had something really good and I didn't cherish that. So maybe she softened and realized she always thought I was really tough, but I was tough with her. And she said, I don't think Aileen would ever look out for us if anything bad happened. My dad said, that's not true. Aileen's got a big heart. And I think she started to see that after he died and we spoke. And yeah.
So maybe because growing up, you guys butted heads. As you didn't feel connected to her, she didn't feel connected to you. And so she didn't trust that, like you said, if something were to happen, that you would step in and help. So it's almost like you guys finally found that bridge of connection a little bit in that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, and not to negate the pain that you went through.
Oh, no, it's fine.
And the trauma, but to have that
I know it's
closure.
amazing. I'm very lucky. I am lucky. I know a lot of my friends. I know. I'm very lucky because I had a lovely dad who I loved.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that she said sorry. Yeah.
It sounds like you and your dad, definitely you had a very positive father-daughter relationship, right?
Very lucky, yeah. Very
Now, what about your brothers with your mom? Was it the same?
Same. It was the same. Very difficult. Yeah.
Okay. And were they close to your dad?
My middle brother, yes. And then he went off to live in Asia because he couldn't find a job in Scotland at that time. And then my mum blamed him for my dad not being well after his retirement. So he retired quite young. Well, not young, but he was 63. And he died a couple of years after. So she blamed him, which wasn't true, which was shocking.
Of course not. Of course not. So one thing I did want to ask you though, and it's on a GenX shared experience thing. In America, we grew up where we would see missing kids on milk cartons and we would hear about kids being kidnapped. Did you guys have that in Scotland, or was there any type of were you scared of being kidnapped, or was that a thing over there?
This is so funny not funny, but it's so strange that you say this because we had a big thing in the 70s about stranger danger.
Yeah.
Was it called that with you?
Yeah.
And we had a cartoon called Charlie Says, and it was a boy with his cat. And Charlie, there weren't many of these episodes, but Charlie's in the park. The boy's in the park. Charlie's with him, and there's a stranger comes over and says, come and help me find my puppies. And the cat, Charlie, says, do not go with strangers. And really strangely, and I don't know if it's because of that, but at the age of 7, I was playing outside, about 150 meters from my house, a man pulls up in his car. He opens the passenger door, which is nearest to me, and he says, can you come and help me find my puppy? And I looked at him. I can remember he was quite a handsome guy. He was like probably in his 30s, dark hair. I looked at him. I said no. I slammed the door. I ran all the way home. But I don't remember the reaction being big at home. And I tried to look back because it was a big thing. And actually recently, I decided to look this up. Just what was it like in the 70s? Were there serial killers of children? And there were 2 in Glasgow at that time.
Did you look at the pictures at all?
I did, but they were dark hair, but I couldn't remember exactly the face because it is nearly 50 years ago. But I haven't thought about it a lot over the years. But somebody was looking over me, I think, that day.
What does your gut tell you? Does your gut tell you that could have been one of the serial killers?
I think that might have been a really bad situation. I could have,
That's
because
crazy.
it was that classic, come and find my puppy in a car. Where were you going to go?
That's crazy.
In the U.S., it's the white van. It's the same.
You see it in London.
Yeah,
white
van.
So what happens? Do they open the back, or how does it work there?
Or the side?
Just
here, the kids.
It could be more folklore than anything but it's the white. We call it the white stalker van. It's a stalker van. It's they don't have the windows. You can't really see in. It's perfect to open the back, throw someone in, and drive away.
Yeah,
terrifying and easily done.
And like, if you listen to true crime, there's definitely situations where it was a white stalker van. But what's funny is the Gen Z kids and the Alpha kids, I assume, are so educated by their parents, by Gen X and millennial parents, since they were little, that they almost just naturally like, oh, there's a stalker van, stay. Like, it's very natural to them. Like, oh, stalker van, and everyone stays away. Or he looks like a pedophile. Like, they'll talk like that. Ooh, he looks like a pedophile. Stay away. Where we didn't, the closest we got was like what you're talking about, like an educational campaign, like Charlie and his
you did that,
whatever. For us, it was the milk carton kids. Like, they would literally be on our milk cartons as we're eating breakfast. We're looking at a kid who's missing, and then we would just go to school like nothing's going on. No one talked to us about it or anything.
And I can picture you going home all startled, thinking, "Oh my God!" And then it just lands like a dud. No one's like,
I can't remember, but maybe they did, but I don't think so. Because you guys, we would be like, oh, "Tell me what did they look like?" We would be all over that and shock.
I'd go drive around the neighborhood.
Oh, exactly.
He'd get his gun. That's, of course, we're in America. And it's so we're in Florida, so he'd get his gun. He'd put on his sneakers because you got to have closed-toed shoes if you're gonna go. Like,
you gotta have your shoes.
There were times like if he couldn't get a hold of our daughter, she was in West Palm, like at a bar or something, and we track our kids. And if she wasn't answering, I remember one time it was like 2 a.m. He put on his sneakers and got his gun.
Out here.
I know. He's on his way to West Palm, and she calls. She's like, "Dad, turn around. I'm fine."
Oh God! Were you driving? Did you drive?
No, I don't.
Almost.
So.
He got in his car.
Oh my God! But I understand it.
He's gonna be like, cut this part out.
I don't remember it. It's not beyond me to do this, but I just don't remember getting that far.
You were obviously just.
What you did was you were walking out the door and she called. Maybe. You didn't get in the car. But the thing that always cracks me up is the shoes. You got to have the shoes.
Shoes on. Well,
on if you're going to go.
If you're going to run, you need your shoes on.
Yeah.
We're in South Florida, so flip-flops.
No, you
don't do flip-flops.
That's crazy that happened to you, though.
It is crazy. But with my daughter, in Spain, we lived in Spain for a while, and it felt quite safe where we were. But we moved back to London, and she would run off in front of me. And eventually, I was like, no, Amelia, this is what happened to me. And I was really harsh. And I remember a couple of people saying, you shouldn't be that harsh. And I'm like, I should be that harsh because it's either that or someone's going to take her. And what's worse?
Yeah.
So they need to know.
Absolutely. I would tell my kids, you're priceless. Like, would I leave $1 million there? No, you're more priceless than $1 million. So that's how I'm treating you. There's no
too many crazy, sick people in the world.
More and more because of social media, and here we are on it. But
but in a good way.
In a good way.
I want to come back to this moment when you were going to sing. And it all hit you. Was that like a play you were performing in secondary school, or what was the scenario there?
We used to sing classical songs. So, because we still had high up pitchy voices, and it must have just been some performance to show our voices and instruments. We were always doing shows at our school.
Okay.
And I think it was just a case of, here are the singers today now. Someone doing the clarinet. I actually sang on TV when I was 10 or 11.
Oh, wow.
And it was the end of, they had a coin called the sixpence. I don't know if you'll know that, but that was in the UK. And they were saying goodbye to the sixpence. And they had a teacher whose son worked at the BBC, and they needed singers to come and say goodbye. So they were trying to get hold of our mums, you know, can they go? Eventually they got hold, and we big close up of me singing Sing a Song of Sixpence. It's very sweet.
Did you go to London to do that?
No, we just did it in the BBC in Scotland. We were in the studios. There were a few people playing instruments. We kept practicing. We were rubbish. But in the final moment, we pulled it together and it was shown on national TV. It was our claim to fame. It was cool.
Your dad must have thought that was really cool.
He did. He did think that was cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You're in school and it's just like music where you're showing the voices or like, is it like after school or was this a class?
Yeah, it would have been a show after school with all the parents.
And it was your time to go up and sing?
And I just collapsed. No, we had this school that they called it a forum, and they had this balcony. It went round and the parents, you all sat in the middle. It was like an octagon shape.
Okay.
And so the singers were up, spotlight, ready to sing. And I just ducked and crawled along the floor and no one said anything.
Wow.
You literally collapsed down and
some of the others looked down and I crawled away. And no one said anything. No one said Aileen. It was so strange. No one gave me a hard time.
Who was in the audience?
My mum, dad, all the parents.
So it came to your point. The spotlight goes on you. You collapse. You drop.
That's awesome.
And army crawl away like a covert operation.
Terrible. It's really ridiculous. So I know.
Was it just like horrible stage fright, do you think?
It was. I think it just took over. You know, when your heart you're beating. It's like a big. I used to get a lot of panic attacks. When I was really young. I think because my parents were arguing all the time. From the age of 7, I was panicked. I think it goes back to this. Just, you know, some people can.
Have you shared this story with Julie? Because she shared a similar event with us, right? Remember
she had to do
the speech.
Oh yeah, I think we have talked. We would have talked about. Yeah, she had one of those. Yes, because she's.
It was around that, like hers was senior year, or she called it year 12.
Yeah.
But
it's funny.
Yeah, where and you both are high achievers.
Yeah.
I know. All that pressure we put on ourselves, it's ridiculous.
When did you know you were a high, like I know when she could pinpoint the moment she realized she was a high achiever. Can you?
I knew at primary school.
Okay.
So because I used to win, you know, for spelling, arithmetic, I used to get money, 10p. Wow. And yeah, I know it. It was worth quite a lot today, I think. So I always like to be top. And I don't know where it comes from because I don't remember my parents putting that pressure. But I just I loved being top. It was me and another guy. But my collapse came at age 16 when I had an eating disorder.
Okay. So, all right. So in primary school is when you started winning the awards and the accolades and getting recognized.
Up till 16.
And you liked that competitiveness kicked in.
Yeah.
And it's that weird contrast of wanting that recognition, competing, wanting to be on top, but inside not feeling that you deserved it, right? And that battling.
Oh, no. But you were good.
Primary. Yeah, so primary was okay, and then secondary was okay, but yeah, it was up to 16. I think it then changed. Something changed.
So when did the eating disorder start?
At 13.
And do you know what triggered that?
I think it was all this stuff with my mum. I think, you know, obviously you saw thin people and it was all about thin, but it was more than that. You know, I've done a lot of work on myself. It's about control. I had no control at home, nothing. You guys know, you see it with people with self-harm. It's a similar. It was the one thing you can control.
Yes. Okay. So, did anyone know you were suffering from an eating disorder?
No, but one of my friends at school, she used to try and force me to eat. And then one of the teachers said, Aileen, it was a man, but he said in front of the whole class, Aileen, you've lost weight. What's happening? And I remember thinking, this is great that you're noticing, but you're saying it in front of everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you anything.
Right.
And so no one knew. And then that continued for quite a while.
Was it anorexia and bulimia, or one or the other?
Bulimia. It was just bulimia.
Okay.
But obviously it has a detrimental effect on your mind. You're trying to
Absolutely.
study, you're binge eating, purging. It's awful. I feel sorry for anyone.
It's horrible. I also had an eating disorder. I had anorexia and bulimia.
Did you?
Yeah, no, it's
What age were you?
I started in 7th grade, and I think I battled disordered eating through college. Like it wasn't as
well.
I would still dabble in bulimia in college. And some it really depended on what was going on with me as I got older emotionally. It was one of my coping mechanisms. So if life got to be too much, I would just stop eating or I would become bulimic. And then if life got better, I could let it go. That's when I was older. When I was younger, I was like in the throes of it. It didn't matter because so much was going on all the time. But if I would have moments of peace, I could actually let it go. But so it became one of my tools of coping. And even now, I'm still very weight conscious.
Oh yeah.
You know, I just am. It's not some, and I am 10 pounds heavier than I want to be, and I'm very much aware of that. But I'm healed in that I eat healthy. I take care of myself. I deal with it through wellness versus abstaining from food. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm the same. I mean, it's always there.
It's always
I think it's an addiction, really. Kind of addiction. And so, because it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I don't do it now either, but I'm conscious and I see my weight change, but I don't do anything about it like I used to.
Right. And I think, like you mentioned, it's a double whammy, right? Because in the times we grew up, there was no acceptance of different body types. There was one body type you were supposed to be, and it's as thin as possible. There was not acceptance of having a butt. There was not acceptance of having curves. You needed the thigh gap. All those things, ribs, like seeing your ribs was a big deal. Seeing back ribs or your what's this, a clavicle or whatever the neck. That was huge, right? All the little things, your wrist, all the eating disorder things that you look for. That was like winning. Like it's a weird thing. As the pounds dropped, you physically felt ill, but you mentally felt like you were accomplishing something huge. Like you were like, yes,
I'm winning.
It's a weird,
but it's not. Oh, it's awful. I'm sorry you went through that as well. So you really understand.
Yeah, but I think for those of us who had trauma and grew up in that time, it was a double, like I said, a double whammy. You're coping, you have an eating disorder because it's the only thing you can control.
Yeah.
But also you're getting rewarded by getting thin because we grew up in a society where that was how it was accepted. So you could actually have people telling you look great.
I know, the thinner you were. Because so you were probably the same because you're your period young. I got curves young. And I remember the boy, and actually, when I think of it, the boys would say, my mum wouldn't let me get a bra. So, I had boobs when I was 12, 13.
Yeah.
And I said, Mom, I need to get a bra, because all the boys were then talking about them by then, and it was a fight to get a bra.
That's so interesting because you would think she'd want to cover you. You know what I mean?
No, it was
opposite. Yeah.
All
so
those
then you had curves, but also trying to be as skinny as possible.
I know, so hard.
Were you going to say something?
I'm just curious. When did you guys realize it was control? That, right? You're trying to control. You're doing it because it's something you can control. When did you have that epiphany?
When I was older and I was out of it, I didn't know.
Not in the moment at all.
No, not in the moment. The only thing that made me stop was that my teeth started to decay at the front.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. But it's therapy and aging.
You don't know why. It's just.
And then you think, you think it's just because you want to be thin. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of men have it.
Did you have friends? I had friends. We would all kind of, like if we had sleepovers, we'd binge and purge.
So I didn't have it young. I found a girl at university who did it as well. And we did that. We did the binge and purge hangout. I mean,
I know. Or you'd compete about like how many pounds you could lose, or all the tricks, like the lemon water with the cayenne, and like all the different things, the laxatives.
Oh my gosh.
All the things. So
did you? I'm guessing you didn't have that.
No, I'm blown away because I'm hearing you say it's about being thin, but I don't
No, it's not.
know if that was the demand that boys were putting on girls at the time, or it was the girls doing it to one another.
It was society. It was the media.
It was to a point, but it wasn't 100%.
The media, magazines.
Magazines, Twiggy.
17 Twiggy, yeah. But all the supermodels.
Oh my God.
They were all thin. The 17 magazine.
But if you look at the supermodels from back in the 80s, they actually do have bodies compared to what I see today. Right. There is a healthier body back, like a Cindy Crawford or a.
No, they were so thin. You don't realize.
Yeah, they're thinner than you. Yeah, now they're probably the better, but Kate Moss.
Skinnier today.
Seems like. No. Okay, so then it went through this, like the early 2000s. Then it went through heroin chic, like with
Kate Moss.
That's back in the, that's our time. That's the 80s, 90s. And then 2000s was really thin. And then it went through body positivity, where it was like accepted. But you know what's happening right now? Thin is coming back. Yeah, it is. Have you noticed that?
I've not, because I'm watching my daughter and she eats like a horse and I love it. And there's no body issue.
Yeah, no.
So that's sad.
Because thin is like the Kardashians have all gotten super thin again. Because you know why? Ozempic. All the celebrities that are already thin are now doing GLP-1s and they're becoming like a zero with nothing.
British girl, Osborne.
Sharon Osbourne. Oh, Kelly Osbourne, yes.
So it's from the Ozempic, and I think alleged. But I mean, in general, I think people are using GLP-1s that shouldn't be, and they're getting like that really what it used to be, that heroin skinny, like so bad.
It's not a good look, is it? And it's just not healthy. And because I see I follow a lady who's our age for fitness, and she's beautiful, she's got a real body, and I love that because it's more about weights that I see, about the training to keep your body.
Strength training, muscle.
Strength training. And,
especially as we get older, you don't want to be super thin. It's not healthy as you go into aging.
Break your bones.
You'll be frail.
You gotta survive some crazy disease.
Well, yeah,
I know.
You want to be able to have the strength to get up out of a chair, to open a jar, like these.
All these basic
strength
that you don't think about when you're a teenager. No.
So how many years did you have your eating disorder?
I think mine was about 8 years, just because of the teeth. How about you? How was yours?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So you had it as you went into college or university?
Yeah. So university starts at 18 and finishes about 22. Yeah.
Okay. And you had it probably there too.
Throughout most of it, yeah.
So after the singing incident, did you stop singing in public?
I think I did, actually. I haven't thought about that before, but I still danced. I did synchronized swimming at 16.
Cool.
That was cool. I love trying new things, always. I'm trying to think what the other things I did, but the singing probably did.
That was it.
That was it.
So everything you tried, you said you like trying new things. Whenever you would try it, was your goal to excel at everything that you tried?
I don't think I thought of it like that, but I did like when I excelled and I got praise. I did. I needed a lot of validation. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of validation from peers but not at home. And I think I looked for the wrong validation because you're not getting it at home.
Right.
And you're not seen and you're not heard. So you go looking. And I was lucky because I got a lot of validation, but then that's hard. It's like with celebrities, get so much praise and validation and then it stops.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like rejection. How do you handle it? But now I don't care. I mean, I realized this some years ago going, I don't care about that anymore. Isn't it brilliant?
Yeah, it's liberating. It is. So what's interesting is that as much as you were looking for that outside validation, you still went to your headmaster about when you won what was it called?
Being head girl of the school.
Head girl. You said you didn't deserve it. So you got the validation
Yeah.
Is that where that imposter syndrome kind of settles
Yeah,
in?
it must. Yeah, it was running. It was. I don't know why. I think because I realized with the bulimia, my brain I wasn't good at studying at that point. And I was expected to be a straight A student because I had been. And then my marks dropped and they weren't straight A's. And I said, look, and he said no. Yeah,
did you find that with all the excelling you did, when you weren't getting straight A's, when your grades dropped, or if you didn't excel, you didn't know how to handle that adversity at all?
Couldn't handle it at all. Yeah. I felt like I was nothing. And I was lost for many years like that.
So it was either all or nothing.
All or nothing. Because I think if you've had nothing and then you grow and then you're up there, it's incredible. When you're up there and then you go down, it's very hard to handle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that happens to especially a lot of overachieving adolescents. And then if they get one B, they've gotten all A's, they've gotten all hundreds, they've won all the blue ribbons, whatever, first place, everything. And then you see them get a B and they're destroyed. Like it cracks something in them, and it's really sad.
It's
really sad.
I wonder for you, did it validate the lack of support you got from your mom? Like almost like I was up here and I was proving her wrong. Then all of a sudden I got knocked down a notch, and maybe she is right.
I don't know. I don't know. It's not that she knocked me down. She didn't like when I got big-headed, but then that's a Scottish thing. We were taught to be self-derogatory and humility. I mean, humility is one of my favorite traits in people, but it was too much. It was like, you couldn't say anything nice about yourself. And so I remember I used to get a lot of people say I was special, and my mum would say, and she wasn't, I don't think she was being nasty either, but you're not special. And so maybe I felt special because I was at the top of everything.
And it wasn't
just a Scottish thing.
No, that's our generation.
That's our generation.
So did you guys have that derogatory?
Yeah, but he was in an unusual situation. Like he had this like his parents built him up, and all, like he wasn't that typical Gen X, But no, I think in general though, our generation, it's that whole don't get too big for your britches.
That's what it was.
Yeah, too big for your boots, we say. Yeah,
exactly. Same. And don't. That's
getting
great.
over your skis.
But I think their generation came from that place where we celebrate our children, right?
Yeah,
like, you're amazing. That's
great.
You did that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because we were like, no, even you, like, even though you did great, it still is different than how you handle our kids when they do an achievement. I think it was just we weren't built up in the same way. Like we weren't built up, right?
No, because they weren't built up. It wasn't their fault, and we know that now. Right. This stage.
Right.
But it damaged us.
It did, and even though they weren't built up, and we can say they didn't know different, and that's true, but we somehow knew different, right? Because we did different. We broke the generational trauma.
So how did we know?
I think maybe that's the grit of our generation, is we were like, we're not doing this. Yeah. We're not doing this to our kids. And we've been so self-sufficient and feral and scrappy from the start, and exposed to so much. And I guess we just knew, we're like, we're not passing this on. I don't know.
But isn't it interesting? I know, but this is what I find amazing is you're in the States, Julie's in Australia. We're all over the world. And as a generation, we all did this. It's not like we got in touch with each other across the world and said, I'm going to do this. How did it? That's what I don't get, that the whole generation did it,
It's true.
Probably the most remarkable thing about us doing this podcast and talking about this is that it is a global thing. It's a global shared experience. It's wild. It's the most wild thing I think we've discovered.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah. It blows my mind that we all live so far away and all did the same thing.
And all had
with our children.
Experience, not just as our childhoods, but that as we became parents, we all kind of consciously made the decision not to repeat.
I know.
A lot of the crap we went through, and to break those cycles. I think it's just such a I love our generation, and I think it's such a testament to us that even without connecting, we still collectively made that change, you know?
We
And I think
did.
it's only now in the last few years with social media that we even all realized we had a shared experience at all.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't
If it
know.
wasn't for, we wouldn't have known this otherwise.
Yeah.
And so
Could
I
you
love that about
imagine
social
if
media.
we could go back
I
and
know.
know, hey, I'm not the only one. I'm
I
not the
know.
only one feeling alone. I'm not the only one coming home to an empty house. I'm not the only one that feels like no one cares about me. You know, all
Yeah.
those things. Like
Yeah. I'm
I
not
wish
good enough. And
I'm not good enough. Right. The self-worth, you know. So in a way, as we've hit midlife, we all can kind of validate each other now.
I know, isn't it lovely? I
It
love
is.
that.
No, it's amazing. I do love that for us because I think we deserve it because we survived. Not only did we survive, but we're breaking those generational trauma, the generational cycle, the generational curses, whatever you want to call it. So we continue to do good with the next generation, and now we're able to support each other and validate each other midlife. I think it's so cool.
I know, I love it. We should talk more. It's
I
really
know, I know.
uplifting.
It is. No,
And
it's
we're not,
amazing.
you know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I do think it's an evolutionary thing. And even without social media, I think it would happen because we would all say, that just wasn't cool. I need to improve this. Because, going back to the period thing, it's like, I don't know, as a guy, I would want to make sure it's okay for my daughter. Whereas and 50 years ago, maybe it wasn't that way.
No.
Right. But I
No.
think it's an evolutionary thing of you see this, it's not right. Let's course correct.
Yeah.
And it's probably going on for thousands of years.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that
I know.
we'll look back and I think our generation has made one of the biggest leaps in change.
Probably
I really
I think
do.
so as well. I do too.
I really do. I really do. And I think when they look back at this time and the things we did, because we're not just changing things as parents with our children, we're changing things midlife. We're
Yeah.
talking about things that no one talked to.
No.
Previous generations never discussed midlife. And I think we'll continue to do that into our 60s, into our 70s, into our 80s.
I love it.
And change the narrative in aging.
Yeah.
And that aging,
Absolutely.
we're
It's
changing
just a
aging.
number.
Yeah.
I know. I love it when I see these ladies or men in their 90s and they're becoming Olympic champions at swimming and singing, I saw a lady that brought out her first book at 102, a lady who's made an album, singing album at 99. And I'm thinking maybe at some point I'll go back to that because you just don't know.
No, and I think us as a collective are going to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Because they're the exceptions of those generations, right?
Yeah.
But I think
Amazing.
us as a whole, we're going
We're
to be
all
like,
doing it.
we're all going to do it. And I think that's going to then show the younger generations you don't hit 40, you don't hit 50, and then it's like, it's done. You're actually just getting started.
I know.
I
know. Sometimes it doesn't.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
Right.
Because I don't know about your parents, but mine dressed like they were about 90, even when they were 40. It was brown, it was dull. They looked old, but we're not like that.
No, well, look at the Golden Girls. Do you know the show?
Yeah, they were brilliant. I loved the
young.
Yeah.
They were like in their 40s.
Oh my God, yeah, they looked really, I know.
Those actresses were not old, but the way they look. Now, I know the characters, but even as actresses, they still looked older.
Yeah,
than 40s and 50s. So, no, I
look
think
at everyone now.
Yeah. Okay. So, was college or university, was that discussed in your home? Was it something that you just assumed you would automatically do?
Yeah, it was actually. I think because my parents didn't get the chance to do that, they instilled it into us that we would go, but they didn't have money. So we got grants. So we all went to college or uni near where we lived. And we were actually given government money to help us fund us. And I had a job in a restaurant part-time. I was really wealthy as a student. I was drinking in the student union for £1 and then saving all my money, which allowed me to come to the States for my summer.
So what did you know what you wanted to go to college for?
So actually, I think I did the wrong thing. I copied my brother because I didn't know what to do. I just knew I had to go. And I was really good at maths and I loved maths. But because no one knew what you could do with maths, I thought I don't want to be a maths teacher, so I'm not going to study maths. And then I actually thought about TV presenting and I thought, oh, I don't know how to get into that. And then I just went into marketing, business, best business school in Europe it was. Spanish, I wanted to learn because I wanted to live there. And that was the course I did for 4 years.
So
but
what
it didn't.
school did you go to?
Strathclyde University.
And it was a business school?
Business school in the centre of Glasgow. It was the best one at that time.
Did you live in dorms?
I lived at my mum's and dad's, so it was 4 miles. It was in the city centre.
Okay.
But obviously I would stay out with friends and stay over with people, and they let me, at that age, they let me do that.
Okay.
But
so they didn't try to control you during those years. You were able to still kind of have that college or university experience.
Still had the experience. Yeah, I just didn't live. Yeah, they couldn't afford to do that. But they did their best, yeah.
Okay. So you said you wanted to learn Spanish because you wanted to live in Spain.
Yeah.
When did that, when did you decide you wanted to live in Spain? When did that hit you?
So that was when I was 18 and I was with my first love. So I was the head girl at school. He was head boy. He had the car, all that stuff, romantic stuff. And he had this massive house in Spain. And we went for a month and I fell in love with it because of the blue skies, the sunlight, and then the food and the white buildings. Because coming from Glasgow, where it was grey, where you said you've come from, that was just a dream for me. And I said, 18, I'm going to move to Spain in 22 years. I'm going to save up enough money. I had all these dreams. And I ended up working. And I remember running a company in Glasgow. And I said, this is my dream. By this point, 18 years, I'm going to be living in Spain and I'll have enough money to save to fulfill my dream. And everyone laughed at me. And some of those people I still know, and they said, you did it, and I did do it, but I'm not there anymore. but
you now they'd say you manifested it.
Manifested. I did. 22-year dream.
That's amazing. So wait, was he Scottish or was he Spanish?
He was Scottish. Yes, very Scottish. And then he wanted to get married when we were 19. And I said, I want to see the world. And then he married the girl after me. Okay. And I think they're still together. Same school. No, he didn't go to uni. He did something else. But his dad was a builder. He built a lot of homes. I think they had a property in the States as well, Florida.
Okay.
A wealthy family.
Yeah, he had. Yeah.
Yes, but we were in the middle. So there was like real wealth, but very humble. And his dad made him work really hard because he was a self-made man. So I had my eyes opened.
Okay, so you kind of saw Spain, you manifested your dream, you went to university, but as soon as you graduated, where did you stay in Glasgow or did you head straight to Spain?
Oh no, Spain was my long dream, but what happened was I went for a job interview in a company called IBM. And so I went for a marketing job down the south of England. I got the job, but by this time I hadn't had a job. So my dad saw an advert in paper and said, Aileen, you should go for this. They want people who are bubbly. And I thought, okay. So I ended up working in door-to-door sales again, which I did at 13. And I was selling restaurant cards, promoting restaurants. I absolutely loved this job. And I turned down the job that was the marketing job. And my mum, she didn't speak to me. You can imagine after getting a degree, getting this amazing job offer
from IBM.
From IBM.
From IBM.
So wait, what did you do in 13 where you were doing door-to-door sales?
I was selling bacon round the doors in the houses. Did you guys work at 13 as well, or is that just...
I did.
Babysitting. Not a
job. Yeah, so you did. We did jobs that were your
cousins. Oh, yeah. We worked.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I can't imagine.
Not door to door selling bacon, though. That's something.
I know. And going into people's houses. I mean, when you think of it now, I think of my daughter, your children.
Back then and collect money.
Yeah, you delivered
go inside
paper. Yes, we did it.
Like I was in a suburb.
Well, she was.
I was in a suburb.
City.
I was in the suburb.
Still, you were closer to a major city than I was.
Yeah,
but it's not a huge.
It was probably still there.
Yeah,
this was on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Okay, so then your dad had randomly told you about this.
Yeah, just so I could work.
You did it, and then you decided to stay in Glasgow and do that and not go to England for IBM?
Yeah. And then I ended up owning I ran the company. It was like a multi-level marketing thing.
Yep.
Everyone kept saying it was the pyramid scheme, but it wasn't. It actually was multi-level marketing. It's just that people didn't know what this was.
Right.
And I was really, I was good at it, and people trusted me. But eventually, when I was running that company at 23, I got held up at Knifepoint by two guys, came into the office and they put balaclavas, and I thought it was a joke. So I laughed. And this guy has a blade like this at my throat and saying, "Give me the money. There's money here. We know there's a safe, blah, blah, blah." This went on for a couple of minutes. I didn't know where the key was. And the guy at the front desk was holding the key, and I didn't realize, but eventually the key was given. I was put in a room with another person. They pulled the phone cable, but they didn't pull it out properly. They left, and then we were able to call outside. There was a helicopter. I had to go to an ID parade at the police station. They found one of them, and I could identify him by his black teeth.
Oh my God.
But it was quite a shock at the time. I remember my mum just, "Aileen, if you'd got your face," and people said, "Why did you not just hit him?" I'm like, "I have no self-defense classes, no training. I'm not going to hit the guy. I don't even know if he's high on drugs or whatever."
Just money.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Give him the money.
Yourself.
Yeah. The money.
Yeah. So that
did they like hold the knife to you physically? Did the knife touch you?
I can't remember it touching me, but I can remember it being right there,
like on your neck,
close enough.
So he was close enough to you where he
was holding it.
She held it knife point, right?
Yeah, right up at next near.
My God, that is so traumatic. Oh my God.
But then you forgot about it quickly again. It's just sometimes it comes back to you and you go, "Oh, I remember when."
Well, you're Gen X. You just grind through
it. We got on with it. You just got on with it.
I love that concept because you're so spot on. We deal with crazy shit in our lives. You forget about it and move on, but then it hits you one day and you're like, "Man, that really was crazy.
I nearly got killed."
Or it's when you have kids and you think like, "Oh my God, if that happened to them, I'd be losing my mind."
I know. And our kids' reactions to things are, completely different from ours. It's not let's get on with it. It's
trauma.
We're traumatized, but
we've created the space for them, right?
Yes, we have.
About, it's a beautiful thing. But if that happened to one of our kids, they'd be off work for like 2 weeks. They'd be meeting with a therapist.
See,
like our lives would stop. It would be the whole thing. But I'm sure for you, it was like people were like, "Why didn't you fight back?"
I know. Why didn't you? Love that. Oh, in Glasgow.
Oh my! So did you keep working there after that?
Not for long. And then I went back to IBM. That job obviously had gone. I got another job that was less than. Okay. And I went down south and I needed that break. And then I got engaged to someone back in Glasgow.
Okay, wait. Did you move to England?
I did for 9 months.
Okay. And did you live on your own?
I shared a house with a guy actually from IBM as well. And that was nice. Okay. It was fun. So but we got burgled. We got burgled as well. Burgled.
What's
burgle? When someone comes into your house and steals things. Oh, we call burgle. It's my accent.
Yeah. I was like, was this a new word? Burglar. Wait. Okay, so you're in London. Your first time living outside of Scotland, right?
It was in actually a place called Portsmouth. So it was down near the sea. It was lovely, really nice place.
Portsmouth. Okay.
Yeah. And then
was that your first time living outside of Scotland for any length of time?
It was actually. Oh no, well, I had 4 months in the States when I was 21, and I had 4 months in Spain when I was 20.
Okay. And then 9 months in Portsmouth?
Yeah.
And you're living with a coworker or a colleague, whatever you guys call it. And you're saying that somebody broke in?
They broke in, but we weren't in the house. But then when I moved back to Glasgow, someone broke in when we were in the house.
In Glasgow?
In Glasgow, yeah, when I got engaged. So a year later, I was burgled again, but in the house.
Okay, wait. So it's all in like a year's time? No, a year?
No. It all quite short time. So 23 was the Knifepoint. 24, I must have gone down south. And 25, I got engaged and came back to Glasgow.
Okay, so
We can't hang out with you.
Yeah. So wait, just to go to when someone broke in Glasgow, what, you were home. Was that Knifepoint as well?
No. My husband, well, he was my fiance. He woke up at the time, but no, they just came in the patio door and they grabbed the keys to the car. Well, got the car and then took the car. Yeah. So they didn't come into the bedroom, thankfully.
Thank God. Thank God. Okay. So, how did you meet the guy that you got engaged to?
He was a friend of mine in their teens, and he had been living in he was Scottish but lived in Africa, and he came back to go to uni. And I was in my last year at school. He was in his first year at uni, and he saw me in the school in the library, and then we got talking, and then we started friendship at uni, a bit like you guys, and we were best of friends. We hung out all the time, and he said he got offered a job in the States, and he said, and they were 21, 22 at this point. He said, "I won't go if you'll marry me." I said, "I'm not going to marry you, so you go." And I went to the airport to say goodbye to him with his mum and dad. And then he came back. His dad died actually of cancer. He was such a nice man, but he was about 24, 25 that time. He came back. We met up for a coffee. And then something happened. And he looked at me and said, "Something's changed." And I said, "Yeah." And then 10 weeks later, we got engaged. He asked my dad. And
wow. So were you in England when you got engaged? Were you still, I mean, not England. Yeah, in England.
Yeah, I was. I was in England, yeah. Yeah.
He came down. So you guys were doing long distance?
Yes, we were. He used to come down.
And then did you move back for him?
I did.
Left the job at IBM and moved back to Glasgow?
I did actually, yeah. I moved in with my mum and dad at first and then moved in with him.
And then did you get a job there again in Glasgow?
Yeah, I got a job.
What did you do?
I was a rep for some publishing company. Okay. So they wanted I was advertising. I thought I'd be really good because of the door-to-door sales.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was traveling around Scotland. I had a nice company car, going to the north of Scotland, speak to people at, Loch Ness. I had to go and do this thing at Loch Ness. But I just liked people and talked to them, and I wasn't bringing in the revenue. So that didn't last very long.
So what did you do after that?
And then I went into a company who were really new in the world of the internet world, and it was publishing cars on the internet, basically. So I went around the dealerships, the car dealerships, did presentations, got them all signed up onto the internet, show your cars. And actually, I loved it. I was good at it. And then the guy that owned that company asked me to come work with him in London because he couldn't get the funding for that company. Okay. Yeah, but he was doing something else. So by this time, that would have been about, then I was 27 when I got married. So it was just after that. And my husband got offered a job at the same time in London. And we moved to London when I was 28.
Okay. So you guys are in Glasgow. You're working those couple jobs. How long between the time you got engaged and got married? How many years?
2 years. I have to think. 1970, 27. So it was 2 years.
Okay. And then you both got offered jobs that took you
to London. Yeah.
And so you pack up, move to London. You're newlyweds, living in London.
Yeah.
And you're working. I mean, the internet, was it pretty new at that time?
Yeah, it was new. What I did when I was 25, yes. But it was obviously, so by this time I'd grown quite a lot. And then I went to work in cable and wireless. There was a division of cable and wireless. Okay. And they had all these data servers for the Financial Times newspaper and big companies like that. And so I became a project manager.
Yeah.
There. And then
what did he do?
He was a fund manager.
Okay.
So, And
money. Then how long? Yeah. How long were you guys in London?
So then I went into then I went into broking. Oh, gosh. My dad died when I was 31. And so we were still together. And then the year after, I left the marriage because I couldn't cope with the death of my dad. And I just saw life very differently.
So before that, were you guys kind of grinding and making money? And was that kind of your focus? Was your career?
Making money to go to Spain. And he wanted to move to Spain or France. So we made this plan that we were going to go and live overseas together and build something
Okay.
together overseas. So he
that
now
was
lives in
still
France.
on
Yeah.
in
Yes,
your
it was
site.
always, yeah,
Spain was still, so you're just working to make
to
the
make
money
as much money.
to live in Spain.
Yeah.
And so when your dad passed away,
Yeah.
had you gone to Spain yet, or were you still in London grinding on the career path?
Just grinding on the career path. And it was a shock for me because none of us had been ill. It was just I got the phone call. I had just been promoted at work. My mum said, "Oh, your dad came down the stairs and he couldn't feel his right hand side. He's going to hospital. Don't worry." And I said, well, "Doesn't sound right. I'm coming back." And so within 6 days, he died. And then I stayed another 6 days, came back. His work was then saying, "Where are you? You've got this new job.
Right.
You should be here." Of course, I was just absolute shock.
Yeah.
But it was that world of finance. I was a money broker at this point. It was quite brutal. And then a year later, I left my marriage. My immediate boss was my ex-husband's best friend. So there was a lot of stuff. But we were very amicable when we broke up. It wasn't a bad breakup. We've been friends. We still speak. You know, I love him. I love him like my brother. I will always love him. He was one of the best guys I've ever met in my life. But then the year after that, my mum had her stroke and she was paralyzed. So it was quite a lot.
What
in a few years.
Did your father pass away from a stroke?
Yeah, stroke or aneurysm. Actually, my brother said that I didn't allow the autopsy because I just couldn't cope. And I'm so sorry. But my grandmother had one as well. So I think it was an aneurysm or the stroke.
Something it sounds genetic.
Yeah.
Like maybe, okay.
Do you guys still have both parents? Sorry. Do you both?
No, I actually lost my dad at 31.
As well?
But in a car accident.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And then Brian lost his dad in 2007. How old would we have been? 30.
I can relate to what you're saying because I had just accepted a new role down here in Florida, and my dad had recently retired, and then he passed away while I was in the process of. I was living here, flying back to New Jersey.
We were living in Jersey, but he had gotten transferred down here.
Yeah, so I was flying back and forth on the weekends.
Yeah.
And then he passed away pretty quickly. And we moved, we had to keep going forward down here.
Yeah.
Because that was around when the recession was happening, or it started.
Yeah.
Yes, I can relate to what you're saying in terms of that shock, I guess.
Yeah.
And especially for you, and I was close with my dad, but you were probably closer with your dad for sure than your mom, right? Your dad was your champion.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a big blow.
Yeah, but it's so weird that we've all lost in our 30s because I've got friends in their 50s who've still got both parents, and there's all the grandparents.
Yeah. No, it's like our kids have never really had a grandpa.
No.
Like grown up with one. Like they remember it from when they were really young.
Yeah.
But two of our three.
Yeah, even our older two, it's like a faded memory with his dad.
Yeah.
Whereas they have friends whose grandparents are even their cousin. We just went to a wedding in Washington, D.C. in September, and there was like 3 or 4 sets of grandparents at this wedding. And our niece and nephew that got married, they're in their 20s and they still have all these grandparents. So I always tell people it was like a new normal. Like everything changed, and my life was one way, and then the next day it was different. I'm sure that's how it is for most people that lose a parent or anyone close. But you don't expect it at 31 or 35, however old, because your dad died only my dad died 2003.
I don't think we're
4 years
equipped to
later.
deal with it
No.
that young of an age, and it's shocking, and you kind of just bury it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
traumatic.
In your 30s, you still think you're going to have your parents.
Of course.
Yeah.
So it is a major shock. It's a trauma. Really.
It's a trauma. And depending on how you deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, I struggled for a long time, but I went through those emotions.
Yeah.
I think, and not to put Brian down in any way, shape, or form, but his way of dealing with it was compartmentalizing it, putting it somewhere, maybe a little bit of denial, like not emotionally dealing with it. And that could be the man woman, the Gen X man, Gen X woman. How did you process
I dealt with it? I think because I don't know about both of you, but I physically felt it. Like, you know, when you see the cartoon, did you have that? Where your heart physically breaks?
Yeah.
And so I definitely processed it. And did you guys see any signs? Like I had signs
Like
after.
of after I did. Like
Did
I would
you?
have things happen. Like my dad loved Bob Seger, and in every grocery store, any store I was in, Bob Seger would start playing.
Oh, that's great.
I could smell. My dad smoked cigars, and I would randomly smell cigar smoke or his cologne. So for me, that's what it was. I don't think he allowed any of it.
If you do it, you have to be open to it.
You have
Yeah,
to
I'm
be.
still not, probably.
No, he's still.
And that's fine. It's not for everyone. I get that.
No. But did you see signs?
I did see signs, white feathers, and actually my dad whistled, and I had a whistling kettle that was electric, and it used to randomly start whistling, and it just reminded me of him.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. It was wild. And he came to me in a dream because I was mad at him for not saying I love you. And he came to me in the dream and said, I didn't need to tell you. Everyone knew. I just remember it just felt real. I woke up and who knows?
It's
a few
beautiful.
things like that.
No, that's really beautiful. Did you struggle on the year anniversary for quite a while?
Even now, I struggle.
Do you notice like the week before, even if you consciously don't know the year is coming up, like but you haven't really thought about it, but then the week before you're off, like something's off. Your emotions are off.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's next week. Like but then you're like, oh, that's why I'm off.
That's why I'm off. Or then I'm in a card shop and I see a Father's Day card or something that just goes. It's not like the pain we had when it started at the start, but it's still there. You never.
It's still there. You never. Yeah. It changes and it's fluid, right? It flows. So how did it affect your marriage though? Because you said because you couldn't cope, your marriage ended.
I think I just saw life differently. And I think because of my upbringing and not seeing happiness with my parents, I think I just didn't really believe in marriage, I think. And it wasn't nothing to do with him. It was all me. I was very immature and I just thought this isn't fulfilling for me, even though he was doing everything. He couldn't do enough. But it was something in me and I needed to do a lot of work in myself, which I then did when I got to 40 and I went to Bali. It was very cliched, Eat, Love, Pray, the book, the film. And I said, I'm going to go and meet the guy from the film who actually was a real guy, Katut. I went to meet him and I lived 50 meters from him.
Wow.
Yeah, which was this. Have you seen this film, Eat, Love, Pray?
He hasn't seen it.
Oh, no, it's such a girly one.
Yeah, it is.
And this woman
since it came out, which was like
years ago.
Like 15, 20, like a long time.
Yeah,
right? Years ago.
Probably about 20.
Yeah. Well, okay, so but it's like, how would you describe it to Brian? Like to sum up the whole concept.
So this woman has the dream of getting married, having children, all of those things, the nice house, and she marries and she has the nice house. I mean, it's a beautiful house. But the marriage, she just feels a bit bored. And so she says to him one night, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to find myself. And she goes off to live in Italy, Bali, and I've forgotten the other one now. And he goes in this journey of life, of learning who she is. And it was a bit like that for me, I think.
And so you did that at 40, literally.
40. Yeah.
It makes sense if you feel like your life has been just a progression of going through the motions to get hit with something and say, I don't understand the meaning of all this. I'm going to go find it. Kind of what you're describing in some ways, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I just wasn't, I was never a conformist. And then I remember my dad saying, you might be left on a shelf. And I looked for security and all of the things that I didn't feel I had growing up because it was always so argumentative. And I got it. But I think from the work that I've done, my safety was chaos, not calm.
Yes.
And it's crazy.
No, but that's really common when you grow up in trauma. Is if all you know is chaos, calm is scary.
It's
Calm is
scary.
an unknown.
Weird.
And you have to adjust to calmness and peace. And the
Very, yes.
adjustment, the transition, that's a whole process. And if you're not capable yet or ready to go through that journey and accept it as a reality and that you deserve it
Yeah.
and let the cortisol come down in your system to not be addicted to that high cortisol that
Yeah.
trauma causes, that's a whole thing.
Yes. So many, I'm hearing more and more people talk about it. Same kind
Yeah.
of.
We have a guest who
Yeah.
wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. We had
really?
someone on
Yeah, I couldn't
talk
believe
about
it when
it.
she described it. It was very eye-opening for me because I like calmness.
Yeah.
I
Well,
grew up
I do
fairly
know.
calm,
Or did you?
right? It's stability.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she described it as that quietness is even more chaos, and you're
Yeah.
just not programmed to deal with it, and you need to go seek out some chaos,
Yeah.
get your cortisol levels back up to
Terrible.
where you're operating at a
It's an
normal level.
addiction. It's
Yeah,
an
it's wild.
addiction to the
Yeah,
high
it is.
cortisol.
And the dopamine and all of
And the
those hits. So so getting into a relationship, you get that dopamine high, and then that
Mhm.
fizzles out quickly. The honeymoon period's over. It's like, this is it. This is calm. Now I would be calm, but
Right. So before your dad passed away, were you already feeling unsettled in the marriage? Was that already creeping in?
it was actually. Yeah, it was.
And
Even
then
though it was quite fresh, the marriage, it was just, yeah,
it was starting. And then when your dad passed away,
it
what did that
highlighted it.
kind of,
Well,
yeah. And then
it's that finality, isn't it? This is it. We get one life that we know of. And so that's done. And I'm not happy, and I'm not going to make him happy. I need to let him go and find happiness, and I need to go and work out what's going on with me. And it was the right thing because we didn't want children together. Well, it was really me. And then he said, I don't want children. But then he didn't marry, but he's got 2 children and he's really happy. And I've spoken to his mom, it was a heartbreak with her. She became like a mum to me. And that was real. That was the hardest thing, was leaving her. I saw her a couple of years ago and she said, I'm so glad you left because I got grandchildren, but you're still our family. And it's just so nice.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful woman. Beautiful.
Well, she probably filled that void a little for you, right? Of that nurturing, loving, warm mother figure that you didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
but was it not the same for you? So I'm sorry, you had calm and you do have more chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. So after you ended the marriage, what was the first, was that like around 31, 32 for you?
32, 33. Yeah.
So did you leave London?
No, I just left the house and
Okay,
moved
so you stayed.
not far. Yeah. And I stayed
And
in the job and
you keep working that job and
kept
grinding?
working that job, and it was hard. Yeah, really hard.
For how long? Oh, go ahead.
I'm just curious, is that a thing for you growing up in Glasgow to leave? Everyone's like, you got to get out. And is
No.
the destination
No.
London, or is it to stay? Okay.
No, a lot of people that we know stayed. I think I knew a couple of people who were like me. I mean, I'm quite a free spirit anyway. I just wanted, not now, I'm exhausted. But I was so cute. I love people. I love going to airports, talking to people, hearing about their lives. And I wish now I'd recorded all these things over the years because it's been fascinating, people we've met. I'm sure you guys feel it when you travel. You love, you do the podcast. So no, I think I'm quite in the exception of leaving. It just felt too small for me.
Yeah.
And there was a big world to see.
How long did you stay in that job in London? Like you left the marriage ended, so you did make a shift in your life. You knew that wasn't settled for you, but you continued on that corporate path. Was there a shift professionally ever for you?
No, because I knew when I went into that job that it was a burnout job. It was work hard, play hard. And I started at 30 and I said, I could do this for 10 years and I'm out. And everyone said, there's no way you'll do that. I did stick to that.
So did you live just you like in your own place for your 30s?
So yeah, I moved to a rental, then I bought where I am now.
Okay.
And I moved in here at 35 on my own. Yeah. And then at 40 I left.
Were you single then through your 30s?
No, I had a couple of boyfriends after, and then at 37, 38, I was thinking I should really have a child because I think I'll regret it because I was ticking off all the boxes, all the dreams. And then it was a guy that I was friends with. We're not together now, but we had a child. We went off to Thailand to live for a while and Bali, came back, and then it didn't work out with him, but obviously I have my daughter. And she
So how
sees
old
it.
were you when you had her?
41.
Okay,
Late
so
mum.
you work the job.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Bali with the guy, her father,
Thailand and Bali. Yeah.
and you had her over there?
No, I got pregnant there. I was there for about 6 months and then came back to have her here.
And you were 41?
41.
41.
Pregnant at 40.
41. So you have a well,
13.
yeah, because we have
a 15-year-old.
Yeah, she's
15-year-old.
13. So you've got 16.
We have 16.
Oh, your daughter's
13. She's coming
13.
up for 14 September.
I got the math wrong there.
Yeah,
Young.
yeah.
She's
yeah.
young.
She's an alpha. I think when was she born?
2012.
She might be the last Gen Z, or she's the first.
I don't know. I did look before, but I can't remember. I need to check.
The last Gen Z, because I have to look that up. So how did it change your life becoming a mother?
Oh, well, I felt, this is one of my favorite quotes by Carl Jung, the unlived.
We love Carl Jung.
Oh, so the unlived life of a child, no, the unlived life of a parent is a burden on a child. And that was one of my things. I love Carl Jung.
What's that?
The unlived life of a parent is a burden on the child. I love that. I love that quote. I've written that quote down so many times.
It's a good one, isn't it? I love that. And it reminded me of my mum and dad because my dad was so worldly and my mum wasn't. And I didn't ever want to have a child and not be wiser. And some people can be worldly through travel. Some people can be worldly through books. And so I felt I have a wisdom and I'm just so happy. And oh my God, I loved when they were so young, taken to all the classes. Loved being a mum. I was at my happiest, probably just felt free and love and joy and
purpose.
Purpose. It was
all of it.
Oh, purpose.
But I love that quote. And I think it's a wonderful way to parent because you don't vicariously live through them and you don't put your unfulfilled, the pressure of your unfulfilled dreams on them. And you also don't look to them for emotional needs or validation. And so many parents that we had did that to us.
They did.
And so I think when you look at parenting like that our lives are our responsibility and our happiness is our responsibility, not theirs. It allows them to have their own life without the pressure of worrying about us.
Exactly.
It's not their job.
No, it's not. And they're not extensions of us. They're on loan to us. Yeah. And it's amazing. I mean, you've got 3 children. You watch them go through all the phases.
Yeah.
And it's lovely. It's hard to see them. It's exciting for them. And to see them grow like that, but to actually understand the growth phases, which we weren't understood for when we were at age. Like, why are you awful at age 13? But we know.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with us.
No, it's just them.
If your 13-year-old snaps at you, it's not personal about us. No. This is the phase they're in. Exactly. It's their job right now to be doing this. It really has nothing. And as soon as you understand that, you can actually communicate better with them. Yeah. And help them and know when to step in, but when to take a step back and let them come to you. Yeah. Because a lot of times if you go at them too much, you just shut them down.
I know.
But
it's a person. Yeah, we learn.
Nuance, and it's a dance. And it's 4 steps forward, 5 steps back. It's a waltz, right, of parenting. Absolutely. And but understanding that it has nothing to do with you most of the time, and you have to just be there to support them, guide them, let them land, have a safe place to land. But it's not personal about you. It's so important. But especially if there's a lot of narcissistic parents out there that will never get past themselves in order to give their children that space.
Yes, I wouldn't say too much about that, but yes, there is a lot.
It's true. Okay, so what pros would you say are to having children later in life?
Oh, for me personally, it was that I had ticked off everything I wanted to do. So I didn't feel any. I've seen friends of mine younger say, I didn't get to do my career, I didn't do this, and they have unfulfilled dreams and they're not happy. Whereas for me, okay, I'm tired because I'm 55. And at 25, I wouldn't have been tired, but I would have been going out partying all the time. So I feel like it's almost selfless, but only because I've done so much.
Right.
And so I genuinely just want to see her have fun and create that for her where I can, even when I'm tired, but have her friends over all the time and see them all giggling. All those things that I wouldn't have done I would have been a rubbish mum earlier. Too selfish.
Right. And you're settled so that you can just 100%
it's about her.
Give to her and not feel like you're missing out on anything.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like you were saying earlier, I don't want to go out at 8 o'clock and have dinner. I don't want to. We've done it all.
Yeah. So did the whole eat, pray, love thing, that part of your life when you went to Thailand and Bali, you got pregnant during that time?
It was the plan. Yeah, we planned to. We said, let's get away from the London scene because we were partying. Let's go over, do a bit more of chill and try and get pregnant. And it's the first time I've ever tried to get pregnant and it worked.
And that's wonderful considering you were 41, right?
I know. So 40 pregnant, 41 I had her.
But still,
It was.
Yeah. Did you ever end up with in Spain?
With the Spanish man? Or
did you end up that was your goal was
with her? She came with
in general with your life. Did you end up there in Spain?
Yeah, in Spain, in Bali. She came with me to Bali. We lived for a while, the two of us.
Okay.
We lived in Scotland. We lived in another part of England. We lived in Spain for 5 years, and she was speaking Spanish like a Spanish girl.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so
it was a gift for her. She was speaking Balinese when we lived in Bali. It was incredible.
Okay. So how did you do that? So you came back to London, you had her. You obviously were not doing this corporate job if you're traveling all over. How did you pull that off?
I had saved money.
Okay.
And I was doing a bit this and that and able to travel with her. And I thought, well, she's this age. I want to show her a bit of the world.
Yeah.
Because, it was a different upbringing from what I had. And there's other reasons, but I needed to get away.
Okay.
But I did what I have to do, and I took her to Bali, and because I felt so safe there when I was pregnant, they prayed to me in the waters in Bali, and my God, I felt like a goddess. So I thought we'll go back there. And my brother had a friend who he went to school with, and she went to Bali, immersed herself with local people, didn't speak English, so that she could speak Balinese, and she spoke it fluently. She started a school to teach English.
Wow.
So we got connected. We became best of friends. Amelia had a stint at her school. I did a bit of work that funded her school because she was about to lose it. And we just had this amazing experience. And Amelia was speaking Balinese.
How long were you in Bali?
About 6 months. And then we had to come back. And then we moved up to Scotland for just over a year because my mum was still in a nursing home there. And I wanted Amelia to at least experience something with a grandma because she was able to smile and couldn't speak, but she, I wanted it for my mum and I wanted it for her.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I said to my mum, look, you knew my life dream is to live in Spain. We're going to go there now and head off. And
just
we did.
The two of you?
Two of us. But one of my best friends I met in London is Spanish. She was moving back and she said, why don't you come here? So we went beside her. But it was just a bit judgmental because I was a single mum in a small community, in a very Spanish community.
So in the community itself, you felt some judgment.
Where in Spain?
In Murcia, which is about an hour from Alicante.
What's the next biggest city?
Next biggest city, Valencia.
Valencia.
Okay. So
we need to get maps out, don't we?
I know.
Oh, you've got one behind you. What's the state?
America.
America.
Remember, you're talking to Americans.
I'll get on my phone and look stuff up.
So but you stayed there for 5 years in that same community?
We did. Yeah, and we
you went to
traveled a bit
school?
as well. Yeah. But we stayed because of COVID as well. I knew after a couple of
Okay.
years,
Okay,
just wasn't quite right. And also it was very isolating because my Spanish at the time wasn't great. And I didn't have many, my friend from here, there weren't many people to communicate with, so just at the shops, hola. But within those 5 years, I did speak Spanish really well because people were just like at the end, wow, you started like this and now it's like that. And then Amelia, she was just speaking like as if she was Spanish, and it
That's
was
amazing.
So
I
cool.
loved it.
Does she still know those languages?
She knows, she doesn't remember Balinese, but she knows Spanish, but she doesn't know how to speak it properly anymore because she's not practicing it. She's doing it at school.
She's probably getting A's in that class.
She will. She was.
Yeah.
Actually, she got 99 out of 100 and the teacher said, that's not good enough. I'm like, for goodness sake, I wouldn't even get 99 out of 100 in English.
In what world is that not good enough?
I'm just like, crazy. No, that's crazy. Gosh. So this is a gift for her. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like from the time she was born, for at least up until recently, you were pretty much traveling with her, right?
It wasn't until we came back, she was about nearly 9. But she was in school in Spain. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
International
That's
school.
Cool.
It was cool. Really cool.
And
that was the thing about being an older parent and having the freedom.
You could do that. I was going to ask you, okay, so it sounds like now, you and your daughter you did traveling with her and now you're back in London and kind of settled.
Yeah.
Doing the single mom life.
Yeah.
How is that? Because you said in Spain it was a little awkward being a single mom, but I'm assuming where you are now, it's totally fine.
Where we live, if everybody's, it's the norm. It doesn't matter. So she doesn't stick out, or it was changing in Spain, but it was just I don't know how many years ago was that we moved. Oh, about 10. So it was still quite new, and I was a foreigner, and there was a lot of questions being asked. And then I would go into a bar in Spain, and people would say, "Are you the Scottish woman?" So I felt like I was in a goldfish bowl. In London, no one cares. Right. You're just right. You do what you do.
So you've been in London for the last 10 years?
No, the last 4 years. 4 years. So 10 years ago, I started my journey in Spain. And then, I didn't get there at 40, but I got there.
You got there.
Got there.
That's awesome. Like you did it.
Did it.
However way it went, you did it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. So for the last 4 years since you've gotten back, did you go back to the corporate grind or did you choose a different career path?
No, I didn't go back to the corporate grind. I couldn't go back to that world of being in an office every day. I mean, I was getting up at 6:30 to walk to work. No. And then coming back and then staying out. No, I couldn't do that. So I have my friendship with Julie in Australia, who you've spoken to, and we met in London 15 years ago, and we just became best friends, and we became better friends the further we moved apart from each other. We supported each other every day through WhatsApp for about 10 years.
That's amazing.
Then it has been unbelievable. The best lifeline, best therapy. And we started a podcast about.
So it's the You Keep Me Sane podcast, right?
You Keep Me Sane podcast, which is all about self-worth, really our generation and self-worth. Lack of self-worth.
Is it mainly about women and self-worth, would you say?
Mainly, yes. But some men have tapped in because of the single parent thing with me. There's some single dads who find it hard to speak, because sometimes they go into a group of women and then the women are skeptical and think the man's looking for something. So they're even more isolated than a single mum.
Right.
So there's a bit of that. But yeah, it's more women that we're targeting because we're the ones that have usually more self-worth issues.
Are you finding that a lot of women, at least in our generation, that are hitting midlife, it's the first time that they've ever taken the time to consider what they want, their needs, or to even figure out what they want or like, or their purpose in midlife?
Definitely. They were never taught to think about themselves. They just followed the path of get married, have children, serve, be there for everyone, be the emotional caretaker, have all the mental load, the physical load, everything, every load. And then they hit the estrogen drop, the perimenopause, which started for me a few years ago, and everything starts to land differently. And then you're faced with a kind of criticism of you're selfish for thinking of yourself. When actually, if the woman isn't together, then the whole place will fall apart, usually, because women are running the households, usually, not in every household, and there are a lot of exceptions. But from women that we speak to, they've been doing everything and they're exhausted and they don't want to do it anymore. And no wonder.
Yeah.
Because it's work.
And would you say that for most of those women, they are in perimenopause or menopause, right?
So yeah, it's the estrogen. Because, even I've watched Julie and she was completely different a couple of years ago and she's now post-menopause and she's clicked into this gear that's just so strong and so powerful. And I'm so happy to see her in this mode. It's so nice to see someone, go through that transition.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm still in the journey because I've got the brain fog and I'm still having, this a different side of it at the moment. But she relates to it. So we work together so well as a team. I can't imagine being in finance and saying, oh, I've got perimenopause, I'm in brain. It just would never work.
It's an interesting thing to think about. Women who are in corporate life, going through perimenopause and menopause and experiencing the side effects that can be very severe from that.
Yeah.
And not having it weaponized, like not being able to talk about it in the fear that it could be weaponized against them and used against them professionally, but having to figure out how to maintain that level of production they've been producing. I guess that's redundant, but under these side effects, like there's got to be a group of professional women that are just in this struggle, I would assume, but can't really talk about it because they're afraid it's going to be used against them.
Well, from what I'm seeing and from a lot of friends and people that we speak to, there's a lot of women losing their jobs at this time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And they're struggling because this was their career. And now at 50, 52, they're just being pushed aside and told it's not right for them anymore. And they've got top jobs and they're having to manage it. I'm seeing it a lot here in London. And it's
they're losing their jobs for performance reasons as opposed to layoffs. And, in the UK, the term is redundant. Your position's not redundant. Is it for performance?
It seems to be, I think it's being hidden. They know that they have got brain fog and they know that they're struggling.
Yeah.
And I think it must be witnessed. And that is now, they're not going to say to you, oh, we know that you're going through this transition.
Yeah.
But that seems to be going on a lot at the moment. But there's some places are starting to embrace it and will bring it into the culture that this is an issue for women and we shouldn't be penalised like this. But it's a harsh.
Really?
Yeah, there are some places in London and probably around the world. I don't know. I can't speak for around the world. But yeah, it's been really strange because I didn't know anything about menopause or perimenopause until Julie and then another friend of mine, and then moving back to London and speaking to a lot of people in senior roles, and they're just devastated because what do you do next?
But you have seen or heard about businesses in London that are taking it into account?
Yeah, they are. Then there's menopause specialists going in to speak and talk about it, and probably not in the world that I worked in that finance world, but in certain worlds where it's a bit softer. There's a transition happening. I don't know how big it's going to become, but it's encouraging because it was never taught. Obviously, our parents never had anything like this. but it's becoming a thing, and because it's being talked about around the world, it's being talked about so much, there's something coming. It's coming. It's
I
getting
hope so.
better. Yeah.
It would be really an amazing thing if not only would perimenopause and menopause be discussed openly like anything else, but that if it could be discussed, if women didn't have to be afraid to even mention it in the workplace in fear of losing their job. I wonder if we will evolve. I hope we will evolve.
I hope so.
Because there's so much such a vast experience these women have. I mean, they're at the top of their game.
Yeah.
And if they could be supported through this transition, they're probably going to be even better when they get on the other side of it. But you just got to.
How long is the transition roughly?
It depends.
It depends. Julie was 10 years. I know other people, some people are 3 years, 4 years. How about you?
It just depends. Like,
that's a lifetime in the
it's a long,
world.
I know. I did my 10 years stint in that world. If it had been at that stage, I wouldn't have been able to perform the way I did. No way.
Yeah.
Not with the brain.
No, but then also, I mean, I think HRT is just now being accepted again because, for so many years, women were told, don't do it. It's dangerous. Now that that's been debunked. That is such a tool to help women with these side effects. So I think what's happening is those 20 years where women were told don't do it because it could cause breast cancer. And now that one study's been debunked. So now they're saying do it. It'll help you, with the support of not just HRT, diet, exercise, supplements, everything, all the things, right? Women could still be at their game, but there has to be support, education. There's so many women that don't even know about these tools. It just
can't be a secret. If it's it's no longer a secret, now everybody can deal with it. And you can even deal with it with humor. Like, hold on, I'm having a hot flash.
Exactly. Well, that's what we do now. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But like you could be in a board meeting and being like, hold on, guys.
You have to remove the taboo, the mystery, the secrecy. Yeah.
There was a newsreader who did it recently. She got up and she had everything written. And she said, I'm in perimenopause. I won't remember any of this. So she read it and it was accepted. She was praised for it. And so
that's what needs to happen.
That's what,
those will be the pioneers, the professional women that are like, and it may be ones that are in celebrity roles or on TV or more, they were in a more prominent space where they can't just be fired, where it's more public, where they're like, I have perimenopause. And so I'm going to hold this and read it. That's how it is. Or I'm wearing a tank top today because I'm having hot flashes and you're just going to have to deal with it.
But that's our generation. That's both of you. Right. And others like you that talk about it.
Yeah. So there is, everyone's talking. Actually, I saw a post and it was Halle Berry talking and she was showing how to put the patch on. I made a comment because I said, my patch is so much bigger than that. And we ended up having a chat. And I was just like, this is so nice because it doesn't matter who we are. No. We're all going through the same thing. We're all around the world supporting each other. And that was just a really nice moment.
I think Drew Barrymore has talked about it too. I think if more and more women our age that have large platforms will talk about perimenopause and menopause, that will help all women, not just in our Gen X generation, but the younger women.
Absolutely.
Because we went into all this so blind. No one told us anything. And it really is our job to not only change the culture on the professional front, but personally for these young women coming behind us. This is our moment. If we're going to do it, this is it.
Yeah, so, we have the platforms.
We have the platforms, but even women who have much larger platforms, they really have to take the lead on this.
I think Halle Berry's been very outspoken, right?
She has, Yes. A lot of the big celebrities are doing it, being honest about it.
Making a change.
I was watching the news yesterday. It's funny you guys are bringing this up, but what might have been, I don't know what it was, CNN or something like that. That one guy, Sanjay Gupta, I think it is. And somebody asked the question. It was like, does cannabis help with perimenopause? And he started talking about kind of the science behind it. He was like, yeah, it does. There are benefits.
Yeah. And I've heard mushrooms as well, mushroom dosing.
Yeah. Psilocybin. Yeah. The whole,
like microdosing mushrooms.
Microdose. Yeah. Let's try
Yeah. No, I think that,
it works.
But the fact that it's mainstream on it's getting mainstream,
yeah.
and there's alternative approaches to your point, the
Absolutely.
HRT. It's not like just
Absolutely.
go sit down with a towel on your head and you'll be fine in a half an
No,
hour or whatever it is,
no,
right?
it's not always like that. No.
Yeah.
Listen, we're half the population, give or take, and we're probably the most powerful. Like we're the sources of life. We run the household. We're
Yeah.
the rock of the home. We,
You're
we need
laughing,
it's
right? You're
true.
smiling.
I didn't
He
roll
knows,
my eyes.
he knows it's true.
Where's my sunglasses?
So it's like, but you can't just celebrate us. You can't just celebrate us in our youth. You
No.
have to celebrate us through all of our life and all of our changes. You can't just celebrate the young women we were and then discard us as
No.
we hit midlife because we're still thriving, we're still
Exactly.
vibrant, and we may be going through these changes, but we're going to be even stronger and better from it
Exactly. Yeah.
and still have even more to offer society. So I think as a generation, that's kind of what we're trying to show
Oh
is
gosh, yeah.
you have to listen to us when it comes to this and watch us as we tackle this next phase of our life.
Yeah, because it's so interesting when you speak, because I have a 13-year-old and I can say, look, you're going through this hormone change and it's horrific, but I'm also going through a hormone change and you're going to have to put up with some of that. We're just going to have to work through this. And it's so healthy that we can talk like that, which we've never had.
You're doing it. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I just correlated that your daughter and you are both going through hormonal changes at the same time.
That's not pretty.
Wow. No, but in a way,
There's a
you
lot.
have each other through it. So
Yes.
there's like pros
You're
and cons
crazy, I'm
for sure.
crazy. But I can remember thinking my mum was crazy and people calling her my family saying that she was crazy, and we need to be. We're so much better than this.
Oh, think about the women that were put in like
Oh
institutions
yes,
probably for
I know,
perimenopause and menopause.
absolutely.
Or given lobotomies or electric shock treatments. Like that went on.
It's
So
shocking.
it breaks
Please
my
don't
heart. I
do
think
that.
of the women. That's one of the reasons also it's like we got to change this because we got to stop that stigma. It stops here with our generation.
It does.
We are changing this narrative. I don't care if we're screaming it, but if we all scream it together, they can't keep calling us crazy.
No, well they can, but we can fight it.
That's the beautiful thing about being Gen X and also the estrogen shopping. We don't care what you think.
Care.
The other
I
thing,
don't
we
care.
hit a point where I don't care.
No,
I don't care
I don't
at all.
care.
So,
When it's such a transition, isn't it, from our youth? When you think, I remember being told that what our neighbours thought, what our friends thought, what God thought was much more important than what we thought. And now we're just like, actually, I don't care. It's complete turnaround.
It's so liberating. It's so liberating to not care. And I think what's so interesting is I don't think men understand. We really don't care. Like I think that hold that, searching for that male partner that we were fed when we were young, that had a hold on us, right? But I think most of us have hit that point, married, not in a relationship or not. But once you go through perimenopause and menopause, I don't care what you either accept me as I am or I don't care. And I think that is where men sometimes get confused because they think it's still the same game. It's totally different game now.
Is actually an interesting point then? Is that a hard transition for you, Brian, to watch this change?
Man, that's a loaded question.
I love it.
I've been answering.
I love
what I think is interesting is doing this podcast, I'm definitely outnumbered at times. It's been very enlightening to be in these conversations. And it's just fascinating. It all makes sense scientifically. I'm a data guy, so it kind of all makes sense.
I put you on the spot.
No,
that's fine.
No, it's an interesting thing. I think we all evolve, right? I've got this theory of the evolution of we're all evolving. So you guys we've got this medium where you guys can talk about different things. You can share the stories, you can share the collective experiences, and it all just kind of makes sense. I forget your original question, but
you got
how have you handled the transition, like of me going through perimenopause and menopause?
It's what's the right word?
Interesting.
I have a daughter, so I love powerful women, or I love the empowerment of women. So to see her shift through this and become powerful and say outspoken as a mom, I love it because it's a role model for my daughter.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
I'm a huge fan of women. I think I love women, but I love powerful. I like women not being dependent on men or being, say, subservient. And maybe that's because I have a daughter. So I think it's cool, but it's definitely a transition because I'm a Gen X guy.
Of course.
And I grew up with those role models, and and I've worked while she's maintained the house, so we've fallen into our own roles around maybe who's cooking dinner versus getting the kids ready while I'm at work, that kind of thing. So we've had these traditional roles, but as we've grown and our kids have grown and gotten older, the roles have changed.
Yeah.
And so I love it. I think it's great because I've said this before. I think women are their own worst enemies in how they treat each other.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that there's support for women.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of that, if that all makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. Good answer.
It is a good answer. And he's been super supportive as far as my HRT, as far as all the different things I need to do, buy, research in order to, I always say it's like putting Humpty Dumpty back together. If I don't do one of my things, a piece is falling off. And if too many pieces fall off, I'm down. And if you all want me up, all my pieces have to be in their place. And so that takes research. That takes, I need to be able to buy whatever I need, the supplements or whatever I need to do without anyone saying, why are you buying that? Or what, that's ridiculous. Or where's the proof of that? So he's super supportive of anything I'm saying I'm going to do or need in order to thrive as I've gone through this or going through this. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's like, if you have a man in your life during this time, that really is his main job, is supporting whatever steps you need to take so you can thrive and feel sane and not give any pushback.
But there's not, I'm not a saint in that. I'm not giving a BS answer.
None of us are.
We've gone through periods. It's like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You are crazy.
Yep.
Where is the lobotomy? Let's get this.
But that's honest.
Well, we've been married
forever.
Forever. But no. And and I will tell you this, and I think I've talked about this. When I went into perimenopause, I didn't know I was in perimenopause because I had just had our youngest. That was a bonus baby. I got pregnant at 39 unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And so I had him, and then I got thyroid disease, Hashimoto's after that.
Terrible.
Okay. And so then I went into perimenopause unknowingly in my early 40s. So I suffered for most of my 40s with perimenopause not knowing. And so if I would have known, I would have been better. So I know that and I coped with it with alcohol. So I would have a drink at night because I couldn't sleep, or I was stressed out. So I'd have a martini, or I'd have wine. So I'd be the first. I've talked about this. I was a functioning alcoholic in a lot of ways because I was having a drink almost every day at the end of the day to deal. And so I know there are arguments we had through our 40s that I'm sure part of it was that I was going through this hormonal change and was feeling nuts and didn't understand.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, and I look back now and I'm like,
that's what that was.
Oh, that's what it was. But no one talked about it.
No. But at least you know now. But I imagine that would have been very difficult because I'm not in a partnership. So it must be very hard to go through that. But you've come through it, and look at you both.
We came through it. And I tell people that especially, we've talked about this too on the podcast, for the men in women's lives that are going through this, if you can ride this ride with her and be supportive, your relationship after is going to be a million times stronger and more fulfilling. You'll be closer and you'll be able to take on anything.
Yeah.
And we have gotten through it, and we grew as a couple, so there is that reward, but you have, as the husband, you have to be supportive. That's like a big part of it.
But I think that needs to be talked about more. I'm seeing more and more men going online and saying the supportive things about their wives, and there's a lot of it coming. And I think if there was more of that, because it must be really confusing, because it's confusing for us. So of course it's going to be confusing for you guys. How can it not be? It's
think
hard.
there's a lot of things though that get you through it. One would be kids, then your shared goals that you want to have in life, right? And your friendship and your partnership. So there's got to be something. There's got to be some northern light you're chasing together. If you don't have that, I don't know how you would survive because it is crazy. And we go through our own stuff. I don't even, I'll get blown up for saying this, but I don't know what the male equivalent is. We've talked about. I do know. I just can't remember.
There's a guy I know. You should do. I know a guy that was talking about it as well.
Yeah, they do go through their own thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's talked enough about at all.
No, I have no clue. But I'm just going forward. Right?
Yeah.
Just keep moving.
Well, I always say, I mean, at least for us, the foundation of our marriage, there's no question, is our friendship. We were friends for 3 years beforehand.
Yeah.
And through the ups and downs, that has been the steady. Like there's just,
that's great.
That's what's gone. That's been the anchor. Because I'll be the first to tell people marriage is, there's bad days, bad weeks, bad months. There's bad years. Like there's an up and down. But if you have that friendship and that truly, truly that deep love, and romantic love. It can't just be friend. Like we're platonic friends. You romantically love each other. You can pretty much, if you hold on to that, that's what got us through. Because there, it's not easy. It's not easy.
And the times have changed, right? So it used to be okay for the guys go do their thing.
Yeah.
Wife does her thing, and everyone's silent.
Yeah.
You just keep doing what you're doing, but you can't do that anymore. It doesn't seem like it. Everybody's held accountable to different levels now, and you kind of got to
step up.
High.
The Gen X women are holding.
We're not taking it.
I want the good old days.
We're not.
Where you sit, you go in the kitchen, the women go over there.
Yeah.
No, well,
I'll be outside. Let me know when dinner's ready.
Silence is a killer, I think, in a relationship. You got to keep talking.
But do you guys always? Sorry. Do you always?
No, go ahead.
Do you have every day together, or do you sometimes go way apart? Or
so before COVID, it was very traditional. He went to work Monday through Friday, and I was home still raising, because our youngest is 16, still raising kids and all that. COVID, home like everyone else, he was home, and then he had the option to keep working from home, and he likes that, so he chose that. So ever since then, we're pretty much together every day, which that was an adjustment for me.
Of course.
Because I had the home to myself running a home our whole marriage. So now he's here. So that was a huge change for me, is to not have time to myself, and to have him there, just kind of that other person of, there were times where I'm busy, like, you're on your feet and you don't sit down until the end of the day, and you're going and doing and doing. But there might be a time where I might want to sit down for 10 minutes, but then at first when he was home, I felt, oh, I can't sit down because he's going to think I just sit all day. So it's like, I can't even take any break, because I was like, I don't want him to think I'm just, but then like now I don't give a shit. But this was like,
now I just chilled all day.
6 years ago or whatever. So now I don't care. But so at first there was that pressure of, okay, I need to make sure I'm not stopping, so I don't want him to think when he's at work I'm not doing anything. At the time I cared. But then once I adjusted to him being home, then everything just kind of worked out. And now he does go back into the office sometimes, and now that's weird. And that's fine. I'm totally fine with it. But it's like, it's the opposite. So yeah, we're together a lot. And probably
a lot.
We couldn't, now we're in our 50s. We could handle it, but I don't think we could have been together all the time younger.
Yeah. Different phase.
No.
Oh, yeah.
We needed, you have to have space. You have to have space.
Yeah.
So, but I was going to ask you, on your podcast, do you guys ever cover how someone was raised, their upbringing, and how it affects the directions they go in their life, the choices like the root of their upbringing, how that can affect the partners they choose, the directions they go in? Have you guys tackled that yet?
I mean, I've touched on it. I've definitely touched on some of my own story and my own, because it's affected my relationships for sure, my upbringing. Julie's is different. We talk about it, but it's not been one episode just on that. Right. But we talk about relationship breakups. But yeah, we probably need to do that topic as a whole.
How much do you think how someone was raised affects the partners they choose?
I'm going to speak for myself because it's so interesting because I look at my siblings and we've done it all so differently. I've been trying to work this all out because my mum had narcissistic traits. My dad was the calmest guy on the planet, but I didn't choose the calmest guys. I went for the ones with the narcissistic traits. And I always was trying to fix something. And I don't know if that comes from being 7 and trying to fix my mum's unjustness, because I hate unjust. I hate any injustice. I'll stick up for anyone. And I should have probably done something in law because it's a big thing for me. But when you look at the partners, I think, why did I not stay with that guy? And then I went with the narcissist. So I do think it has an effect. But then I know other people who come from terrible backgrounds and they've ended up with amazing partners. So it's a difficult one to pinpoint.
I wonder for you if it was what we talked about earlier, is the chaos is more more calming
safe
than the calm. Safe.
Isn't this? I'm not in that stage at all. I've done enough work, finally.
Yes.
But when you look back, but I just think we're all on our journeys, soul journeys. We've got a lot to learn. Yeah. I won't go into all the past lives if there are of them, if future lives, who knows? But we get this lifetime. Am I?
Can I ask, because we've had people write in, talk about dating in your 50s. Talk about dating in your 50s. Are you dating? And if so, is there anything you can share on what it's like out there?
I'm not dating. When did I last date? I did date, actually. I won't go into detail.
No, you don't have to go into detail.
Yeah. It's tricky, actually, because we've all got so much baggage. And so there's all that to deal with. There's trauma responses and things that you would expect from a 13-year-old. You're seeing it in people in their 50s. And obviously, I'm finding some people who have been in very long relationships, so say they got together at 22, like you guys, and then they come out, they haven't changed as much as someone who had, 5 ladies, or, there's, so they have an expectation of you to be a bit like that marriage, but actually you've evolved in a whole different way. So there's managing that's been quite tricky. There's one. I've not been actively looking, I have to admit. I've kind of given up.
That makes sense, though. Is if you're talking about men, if you have a man who's been in a marriage and gotten out of one, he really has no clue about women in their 50s at all.
And so that's really tricky. So you meet the guys at 30 who really get you, and they want something because they quite like older women, but everyone always thinks it's the older man that likes the younger woman because that was the tradition. It was always, but these guys I'm finding are so wise at 30. But you're like, but no, you're 30. You're young enough to be my son, and I don't. You know what? It's been interesting.
Yes. That's because we've raised them to be different and more enlightened. And now they're out there and they're relating with older women that are older than them because they're more evolved.
Yeah, so they don't want to be with the younger girls because they're like, they don't know anything. You women, so it's really, it's not what you expect, because in our parents' day, it wouldn't have happened like that. There's no way.
That's so interesting. And
it's a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. If I were to be single and I've been in this marriage for so long, being with someone who's not been married I could only probably be with someone who's been married forever, and you just almost both you settle into it. All right, this is comfortable. But anything outside of that would be very interesting.
You would have to evolve.
Yeah, because a lot of women are divorcing men at our age.
Yes.
So then divorcing women, right?
Yeah.
And those women are like, I'm not putting up with this shit anymore.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to 30-year-old.
I know. They want a woman who's confident and just
that makes sense.
Appreciates. Yeah. It's such an interesting thing.
I think that it's a whole thing, and the gray divorce and all that. But I think you're right. Women are like, I'm done. I'm not, and they certainly are not going to put up with it when they return to dating. I'm sure as soon as they see signs,
no, they don't. They're saying no, and so these guys, if it's someone who's been in that traditional marriage, who's been looked after, they're displaced. They don't know what can I
100%.
offer here.
Yeah.
No,
And
they
saying,
have no idea.
no,
And this is where, especially Gen X men that are out there dating, really need to start evolving and need their emotional development to get active here, because the women aren't going to go back out there and get a guy just like the guy they just left.
Oh,
They're like,
no.
absolutely not.
Whereas the
And
man would be happy to fall into that, because statistics show that for a man, it benefits way more in a marriage, usually traditional marriage, than a woman does. I mean, there's a lot of stats about death, and the man lives longer and the woman tends to not.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure it's going to be different for you guys.
I'm just laughing because that's come up before. I think Nicole has said that men benefit far more from marriage than women.
Well, they do.
Sure. Because they've had free labor their whole marriage.
Exactly. I know. So that allows you to have the career, but then there's men who will say, but the woman just did the home stuff. So when they divorce, they say, I don't need to pay for things. And like, what, I gave up my life to work.
And if you would have had to hire that out, you couldn't have afforded
it.
Exactly.
And that's the
difference. It's crazy. I saw a creator on social media recently. It was a guy saying, how he's like, men will say, well, I worked, and she was just home. But he's like, but dude, you would have worked anyways. Like you would have had a job anyways. So it's not like you're doing something spectacular. She's a mother. Yeah. She's having to take care of a home. She's having to take care of family. She wouldn't have done that anyways. Yeah. Like she could have gone and worked and had a career. No matter what, you're working.
What do you think the solution is there, though? Because those are roles. Those are traditional, societal, male, female, mom, dad.
But that's changing. And
it's changing.
The marriage is dissolving. People are not getting married as much.
I think that they both need to carry the domestic load.
They do.
But do you think but is that both carry the domestic load, but also the professional career?
That's between them. So if one of them's the breadwinner, the breadwinner still has to carry some of the domestic load. It can't, because whoever's home is also doing a job during the day. So it's more in the evening you're talking about. Let's say one's home and one's at work, but in the evening they're together. The one that was at work can't just come home, sit down in front of the TV and just put their feet up because I was at work. The one at home was working too. So at the evening time, that has to be equal. I think that's where most of the stress happens, is that one comes home and this one still has to do baths, do dinner, clean up, do laundry, do bedtime, do homework, all that shit. Yeah. And so I think that it's the evening time when whoever was home needs to also still participate. I do think it's changing though.
It is changing. Oh, it is. They're not putting up with it. Like,
no.
Well, I wouldn't be good. When I was married, he did everything at home. He was.
Did he really?
He did. I don't want to cause a fight, but he was amazing. No. He loved cooking.
He did all unicorn.
Sounds like me.
It was he's been the only one, but yeah, I couldn't have been. I always say this. I just couldn't have been that person at home who did all the stuff and have someone come home and sit.
Yeah.
I think that's a tough one, because it's almost what I heard, maybe it isn't what you were saying, but there's a whole shift to all going on to the guy. You could take that from what you said. I know that's not what you're saying, but it's a tough one, because if the guy has to handle the professional side of it, the career, the financial side, and the mom is home raising the kids, when dad comes home tired and just wants to chill, you're saying, nope, you can't. You got to do the bath, the dinner.
Help.
But
yeah, help.
At the same time, you don't want to bring, and it's happened already, it is what it is, but taking women into so now you've got dual careers and no one's home. That's a challenge too, because that's breaking the mold in some ways.
I think you can totally have dual careers and still have 100% connection with your children. Yeah, I know because especially when that time comes when everyone's together at night, if you're all working together, that's where so much of that happens.
Yeah, but then when the kids are sick and they can't either go to, a lot of people
has to stay home.
Daycare thing.
Yeah.
No, there is that, but I do know a lot of people that make it work like that with the two careers, and the children are great.
They're fine.
And that's where grandparents come in. If you can if
if
you're
you
able
have
to
them.
have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
need
it's
a
not.
village. That's what I've learned.
You
You really
That's
do.
it is. You do the village.
But especially with phones now, I think that is a positive of phones is we have a family chat. Like you
Yeah.
can keep in touch with your kids all day. There, I think it's actually more now than ever you can be connected to your kids
Yeah.
with both parents working and all that. So, all
Yeah.
right. But listen, before I ask my last question,
Yeah.
do you have any questions?
I do music. So,
Okay.
Oh, yes.
right. And we know the UK's been tremendous
Yeah.
in music. What about in Scotland?
Oh,
Right. I'm trying to
gosh.
think. I was looking it up.
Oh, wow.
Hit the major scene.
Yeah. Deacon Blue, Simple Minds, Prefab Sprout, Texas Eurythmics. Gosh, I need to think of names. Spice Girls,
So
but that's not
you
Scotland.
lit up a little bit. So you're okay with the music scene that's come out of Scotland.
Oh yeah, I mean Scotland was a great music scene. Actually, when I was at school, do you remember Band Aid?
Yes. Yeah.
So in my school, I was 13, so that's I can't do the grade thing. They came, Midge and Bob Geldof came to our school.
No way.
And that was just an amazing moment. And then Simple Minds, Simple Minds, they came to our school.
Of course.
Yep.
Yeah, I went to see U2 in Scotland. Yeah, Phil Collins came to Scotland. The music scene is massive in Scotland. It was massive in the 80s, 90s. Glasgow was the place to be. You should look up.
It might still be, right? I feel like there's probably some big festivals that come through.
Yeah, there are festivals there. And have you heard of Wet, Wet, Wet? There was an old band. Texas, Charlene's the Scottish, but you must know Eurythmics. Annie Lennox.
Yeah.
So I can't think of all the names now myself, but there's a lot of bands. Great bands from Scotland.
What was Bob Geldof like? I loved him.
Oh, it was so nice. Well, there's all that controversy over
with Michael Hutchins and stuff?
With Midge about the Band-Aid thing, because it was actually Midge's idea. And
whose idea?
Midge from Ultravox. It's a Scottish one.
Oh, it was.
He approached Bob Geldof, and there was a book about it all, how it was really Midge's idea, but Bob Geldof got all the credit. So that was interesting. But we just got to say hi. I mean, it was a big thing to have them come to your school.
Yeah. He was that was hot. We all, and that was a whole thing. There's also that controversy with Michael Hutchins, right? Do you know that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he ended up they were dating the same woman or something.
Yates, and that's right. I forgot.
And then the daughter. There was all that.
There was a lot of stuff that went on. Yeah. So I didn't get to have a full blown conversation, but yeah.
What was Band-Aid about again?
It was about raising money for
was it for AIDS awareness?
It was Ethiopia, right?
Ethiopia, yeah.
Ethiopia, that's
right.
right.
Because
it was amazing.
It led to Live Aid.
Yeah. Band-Aid Live Aid. It was huge.
Yeah, they raised a ton of money there.
Feed the World was the song. Oh, yeah. Do you know the Proclaimers? I would walk 500 miles. That's another Scottish one.
Okay. And We Are the World, that song came from that time. And then when Band-Aid did the Christmas one.
It's Christmas time.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. That was a time.
Yeah, it was not. The music back then was great.
All that. Oh, yeah. Oh, were you guys into American music when you were younger?
I'm trying to think. Give me your bands. Give me.
I mean, it would have been gosh, there's so many, but what
well, a lot lot of our music growing up would have been rock and roll. It would have been
I liked rock and roll.
AC/DC.
I loved Meatloaf.
Meatloaf, yeah. But the ones you just said are from AC/DC is not from England.
They're Australian.
They're Australian.
Yeah. But all the rock ballads, I loved all that.
Elvis, we can claim Elvis.
Elvis sang a Scottish song called Donald, Where's Your Trousers?
Oh, wow. I have to look that up.
Donald, Where's Your Trousers?
You know who the Grateful Dead is?
I know the name, but I can't think of any.
It's like a jam band.
Yes, you need to sing something.
Over here.
They've never gone to Scotland. They've gone to across Europe, but never to Scotland.
Definitely know the name. It's just songs. I can't. Yeah.
Do you like bluegrass at all?
Bluegrass, I don't know.
Oh, no. Okay, you got to check out. Write this down. You got to check out Billy Strings.
Billy Strings. I don't have a pen.
Billy Strings.
You need to message me.
Or it'll be
Billy
in your
Strings.
episode. Billy Strings.
I think there's a sticker.
Yeah. He's a like bluegrass jam band, but that's an American. He's young. He's like in his early 30s, but he's really big over here, and he's probably nothing you've ever heard
just
before.
played the Royal Albert Hall.
Oh, is it in England?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, you got to go to Royal Albert Hall. Oh, it's amazing.
Have you been?
Yeah, I have. Nice. I've been in because I'm into opera as well. I've seen the opera singers. Been to Vienna and I saw my favourite opera singer by accident singing out in the open, which was amazing. Jose Carreras.
Cool.
That was cool.
That is so cool. Wait, you said you came to the States when you were 21 for 4 months. Why did you come over here?
Because I was at uni, we had 4 months off summer and we got offered this Work America or Camp America work to just kind of exchange thing with students. So I thought, why not? I just wanted to explore and it's just the best time. There was 17 of us shared a house. It was nuts.
Where'd you go?
That was when I went to Virginia Beach and worked for 2 jobs and then traveled all over to New Orleans and San Francisco.
So you were in Virginia
San Francisco.
Beach,
I love
through that. You traveled through that.
Yeah, I saved money there, and
that's cool.
It was very cool.
How'd you like San Francisco?
I loved it. It was my favorite place at that time.
Even more so than New York.
Yeah, I did. I preferred it. I don't know. Everybody was so friendly. That's what I remember. But everyone says it's not like that now. And I actually worked there for a while as well. Not like that. It's sad, isn't it?
It is.
I think it's coming back around.
I think it is coming back around, but it hasn't been. It was one of our favorite places in college, but then we haven't been able to go back because it's just. But I think it is changing.
I love going to Napa Valley as well.
Oh well, yeah, it's beautiful.
Did you ever go to the Redwoods?
No,
Northern California.
See the big trees.
No, I've been to Santa Monica and
yeah.
What else? Stayed at the Mondrian in LA.
Where did you go in Florida?
I can't remember names. Oh God,
Miami.
So bad. I mean, I've been obviously done Disney. I've been to Miami and then Fort Lauderdale, and then I can't remember.
Okay. Now in Scotland, how do Scottish people feel about Americans? You can be honest.
I think they think that Americans are brash, that they are very full of themselves is the general thing, because we're so, we just put ourselves down so much. So when you said earlier that your generation did that, I didn't know that because that wasn't our experience of America.
Right.
So that was very interesting for me. But that would just be a general thing. That
probably us being raised to not be full of ourselves is still not as extreme as it would have been over in Scotland.
Right.
So we would still seem full of ourselves to Scottish people.
Well, actually,
even though in general,
I did meet an American man not so long ago, and he thought he was very humble, and then he met me and said, "I'm not humble at all."
That's funny.
That's funny. That is so funny.
My last question. Yeah. Scotch whiskey.
Which whiskey?
Do you call it just whiskey? Because we call it Scotch over here.
We say whiskey.
Okay.
And you get it in Ireland as well. I'm not a drinker of it myself, but my mum and dad loved it, and one of my friends is really into it. But you can have single malts, or you can have.
Oh yeah.
What do you like?
I actually stopped drinking, but I love good Scotch. To go buy a semi-expensive bottle would be a thing, and share it with friends.
You want to? If I can, if you've stopped, I've got a name, but go on.
Bellamy. Gosh, I'm saying it wrong.
It's such a good one too. Laramie.
Something.
You're as bad as me. Now my brain's gone.
Now he's getting later.
A friend of mine drinks Highland Park. She says it's. Oh, do you like it?
Yeah, it's good. I've not ever had a bad Scotch, to be honest with you.
It burns my throat.
Yeah.
I'm now gin. I was vodka, now a gin.
Gin. Well, gin can burn your throat a little bit too, but not like whiskey.
Not like whiskey, no.
All right. Do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Gosh, we've talked. Thank you.
My last
Yes.
question. I told you to block off 4 hours. My last question, I think we've gone over that. My last question is always, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years. Okay, so when you wrote that to me, I thought, oh no, can't think 5 years ahead because I've always planned, 22 years, all these. But actually, I think 5 years, I will be sharing time between here and Spain. And I'll be doing my podcast there with Julie in Spain.
I love that.
As well as whatever other projects come my way. I'm still a numbers girl because I quite like a bit of trading and things like that. So there'll be a mix of things.
Oh, there you go. A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. Yeah.
And I love that Spain, you're still manifesting Spain. I love that.
You guys need to come. What about you? What are you going to do in 5 years?
I don't know. Let's see. We will finally have no kids in that house.
Wow.
Maybe.
You think?
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe. Or no, he'll still be in college. So we won't be totally, but hopefully this podcast still, because I love this podcast. I love meeting people.
Great.
I love hearing their stories.
It's been amazing.
And hopefully doing some more traveling because we haven't done a lot of traveling for a while just because of everything with the kids. But our youngest played travel lacrosse for a while. And so we were always traveling for lacrosse.
Okay.
So it'll be nice to just travel for leisure. So that, and I don't know, and the podcast and maybe a little more freedom.
Selling here and moving a little further north.
Okay, why? What's north?
Actually, so we just spent the weekend in Savannah, Georgia. And I noticed when we first hopped on, I could see out your window and it was still light out and you have brick buildings out there, right?
Yeah.
We don't really have that here in South Florida. Everything's new.
Oh, yeah.
And it's beautiful, right? It is beautiful. It's wonderful here, but I miss that. Walking around Savannah, it's all old buildings, old for us,
right?
For the U.S. From the late 1700s, early 1800s. Yeah. Everything in Florida is from 2 years ago. I'm exaggerating, but it's all new. I miss that, being able to walk around a city, an old city, and brick buildings and monuments and history. That's primarily why.
Oh, that's a good, Well, you got to get to Scotland, Julie, as well, don't you? Go and see Edinburgh.
I do want to go to Scotland.
We would love to. We would love to go over there. He traveled for work back in the late 2000s.
I've been to London several times, been driven up from London to Leicester, Birmingham, in France, over in Paris and in various cities, the Netherlands. Lovely. I do love London. It's a great city.
It is a great city, but it's nice to get out of it as well. When you're in it, it's like everywhere you need to get out. Yeah.
Well, if we plan that trip, I'm going to be contacting you to tell me where to go.
I'd love
what
to.
To do.
Absolutely.
I want to know where to go as a local. Not
around. It's such a great city.
Yeah, it is. You can recommend definitely
places you would recommend for sure.
Yeah.
That only locals do or go to.
Yeah, no,
that's
absolutely. Definitely get in touch and come to Spain if I'm in Spain.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Aileen, we can't thank you. Wait, I said it correct, right, Aileen?
You said it perfectly.
I said it perfect. Okay. I don't know. You know why I have that song in my head?
Oh, you've got Aileen. Come on, Aileen.
Yes. We were just talking about music and I just had that song in my head. And I was trying to remember who sang that because that was
Dexy's Midnight Runner.
And where are they from?
I think they're Irish.
Okay, yeah. So while you guys were talking music, that came in my head, and then I just got confused.
I might. Okay, maybe I'm not. Maybe they're English. Oh, I need to look that up.
But they're not American. I know that. I love that song. I used to watch that video on MTV over and over and over again. It's such a good song.
And Wham. Did you have what?
Did you have MTV growing up?
Have what? MTV.
Music television. That's what it was called.
No, do you know what? We started with 3 channels, then had 4, then 5. And I don't know what age it changed. But MTV now, obviously, but definitely not. We top of the pops.
500 channels forever.
So,
you're way ahead.
You guys didn't have MTV?
I don't know what year it came. No, we had Top of the Pops on a Saturday. We've got Dukes of Hazzard, Starsky and Hutch. Yeah. Loved it. Oh my God.
Do you have Chips and Love Boat?
Chips. Did you say Chips?
Happy Days.
Yeah, Happy Days. Yeah, Love Boat. And remember the name. Oh gosh.
Shirley.
Fantasy Island.
Oh my God, that was... Okay, wait. You have Amazon Prime over there, right?
Yeah.
We have all those shows right now on there.
Oh, so I've got Prime, so I need to go back.
There might be some international nonsense.
Well, over here in America, you can watch. Remember Bionic Woman?
Oh God, I love the Bionic
Woman. That's on Amazon Prime now. Like all of it.
And what's her name? Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Yeah. I loved her.
Love her too. Thank you.
I loved her. I love it. I could sit and talk about this.
I know.
Aileen, thank you. Thank
you
so
much for listening to me.
We loved it. We loved your story. And I know there's going to be a lot of listeners that it resonates with and will enjoy it as well. And your podcast with Julie, You Keep Me Sane podcast, where people can go and hear more of this and more relatable stories, especially midlife, what a lot of Gen Xers are going through, and especially women, but not just women. But they can go find you guys and you talk about all these important topics and keep using your voices, keep getting the messages out there, especially for the younger generation, but for ours. But we can't thank you enough for being so candid and vulnerable and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've had the best time. Thanks for getting me to talk. It's been a pleasure.
It was wonderful. It was lovely.
You guys are amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. And for our listeners, I could listen, just so you know, I could listen to you talk about anything because of your accent.
Totally. Yeah.
Thank you. I hate it, but I do get quite nice.
I love it. Do you ever get Americans asking you just to say words?
Oh, yeah. People used to pay me in the States when I was a waitress, and they used to say, just say XYZ and give me big tips.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing.
So you can put it on your GPS voice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I should sell my voice on that.
You should.
Yeah.
Take a right here. Turn left. I know no one wants to hear the American accent.
Oh, no, over here, yeah, they do.
I don't know. But anyways, thank you again. And for our listeners, everywhere you can find Aileen will be in the show notes. And again, it's the You Keep Me Sane podcast. And her co-host, Julie, just did an episode with us. And by the time Aileen's episode airs, Julie's will be up for sure. So check them both out. And if you have any questions or comments for us, we always love to hear it. And again, thank you, Aileen. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.